Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is for you. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Schomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports, episode 679. And joining me on the eve of the American Civil War is my good friend, Nathan Hawthorne. Nathan, how are you, man?
I am doing absolutely fantastic. We just watched a Monday Night Football thriller. The inevitability of Patrick Mahomes came on in full display. Love to see that. Other than that, I don't think the audience realizes what kind of episode they are in for here. This might get a little testy today. This might get a little testy.
It's going to be really interesting. Let's lay out the show today. We're going to talk about Kansas City. I think we got to start there. But then we're going to talk about Caleb Williams, the Bears quarterback. I don't know how it's going to work out visually because I've got a lot of film that you're not going to be able to see that I'll just talk through and explain what I saw. I don't know how the segment's going to play out, but it's going to be basically a really lengthy, in-depth segment with opinion and some film and a lot of stuff about Caleb Williams. And I think it's going to be really, I don't know. Well, let's just jump into Kansas City and then we'll talk because I have so much to say about Caleb Williams and I want to hear from you too about it. First, Kansas City. Kansas City beat Tampa 30-24 in overtime on Monday Night Football. This game was awesome. I want to say that first of all. I wasn't sure if we were going to cover it. I was like, yeah, it's like, for example, Sunday Night Football. I thought Vikings Colts was kind of a dud. It's like, it's not really worth, I think, giving a lot of airtime to. And this game felt like it might be that. And instead it was honestly a really fun, epic back and forth game where midway through the fourth quarter, even going into the fourth quarter, I was like, man, I really genuinely don't know who's going to win this football game. It wasn't until about 30 seconds left in the game. We'll talk about one decision that was made that I was like, we know who's going to win this football game now. But for the most part, it was up in the air, and that was really fun. And that's all I want from a football game is to go into the fourth quarter with the game in question. Kansas City's 8-0. You mentioned the word inevitable. That's the feeling watching Patrick Mahomes. We've said it a lot, but he has a knack. Like I was talking about this with someone. See, I'm going to die over here. Talking about someone recently at work, actually. They were like, oh, Mahomes' stats aren't very good, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand. He just, every time there's a moment he's required to make a play, he finds a way to make exactly the right play. And Kansas City really rises to the occasion every single time it's needed from them. Even like the final drive in overtime, I thought was really safe, honestly, and a lot of stuff underneath, some runs, some physical play, ultimately leading to a touchdown. It's like you knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I've said enough now. What's your first initial thought watching Kansas City beat Tampa on Monday Night Football?
Well, my first initial thought is, wow, like big tip of the cap to Tampa Bay here. I thought going into this game that not that it was going to be a blowout. The Chiefs aren't known for doing that, the last couple of years. But I thought that the Chiefs were going to walk away with this game handily. I thought that the Bucs going into Arrowhead Stadium, it's a little bit stormy. We know that they tend to be a very pass-heavy offense and include their running backs in that kind of pass game. I figured this was just going to lay perfectly into the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs, Bucs without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and things were going to keep rolling. But they showed up and they showed out. They played physical at the point of attack with Vita Vea. Again, showed up defensively, made a number of plays. They forced the turnover on Travis Kelce. And again, they made it a game. Obviously, hindsight 2020, I think you go for two there and you say, hey, we're either winning it here or we're not winning at all. But again, I want to tip the cap to Tampa Bay just as much as to Kansas City here today.
Well, let's say this too. I think they are, frankly, 2 plays away. They're 4-4 right now in Tampa. 4-5, excuse me. They're 2 plays away from being 6-3 instead. I mean, the last 2 weeks could have gone either way. They had a play against Atlanta last week where ball's knocked out at the goal line. It's ruled a touchdown. That was clearly, you watch the replay, that's a fumble. That wasn't called a loss by a touchdown. It's like, well, they would have won that game. And then here, they score the touchdown to tie the game at the end of regulation. And instead of going for 2 and ultimately controlling their destiny, they kick the extra point, give the ball back to Patrick Mahomes, then roll the dice with a coin toss. He gets the ball first. He scores. They win. I got to say this.
I just want to quickly add in.
Yeah, please.
Their first loss against Atlanta in I think like week 5, I want to say. That too, again, came right down to the wire. So add another potential win without a Kirk Cousins, driving down the field and scoring that touchdown, another opportunity where their record could look entirely different.
I think you got to have a lot of respect for Tampa, especially like context. They're playing without Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. They are really short at receiver, still finding a way to score points. You saw Steve Spagnuolo after the game have a really lengthy, long kind of hype him up conversation privately with Baker Mayfield. And you're like, that's, by the way, the defensive coordinator of Kansas City. He very clearly respects Baker a lot. And I know that the record is 4-5 in Tampa, but I don't know how you don't look at what they've done this year and not really respect the year they've put together, the effort they've put out every week. I don't think they're out of it. It's hard to imagine them pulling the division away from Atlanta at this point, but it's also not over. It's not out of question, and that it should be out of question. By the way, it should be a given that Atlanta's going to win that division in the NFC South.
Mm-hmm.
And Tampa showed that they're just going to hang around and compete. And the fact they're not out of it entirely really speaks to Baker's leadership, the organization, the way they're doing things. Again, you have to tip a cap to Tampa Bay, and Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, and Liam Cohen as well, right? The offensive coordinator. A lot of questions after Dave Canales parted ways and took the job in Carolina. Maybe that offense was going to take a dip, but it turns out he's picked it up right where it left off, and in a few ways has made it better. Obviously not as dependent on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. But back to the winners here, Kansas City. Leaning on Kareem Hunt, producing a 100-yard rusher. Did it take 27 carries? Yes, but it was wet and it was messy out there. Patrick Mahomes, 34-44, 291 yards, 3 touchdowns. Again, just a great performance. 0 interceptions. That's another big thing. When the moment was brightest, Pat showed up. And then DeAndre Hopkins. Again, we talked about this and how important he was going to be to this Kansas City offense. But one thing I don't think we mentioned is the space that he was going to create for Travis Kelce. And that also showed tonight. Again, a full week now of practice for DeAndre Hopkins to get integrated into the game plan, how that has completely changed the look of their offense. Still obviously able to run the ball physically and downhill, but then being able to throw the ball downfield. I mean, when was the last time we saw Pat kind of close his eyes, throw it up to a guy when things are falling apart, and that guy coming down with the football? That is an element they have not had in quite some time. So another weapon for Pat. And again, until otherwise noted, Kansas City Super Bowl favorites.
DeAndre Hopkins was the get of a lifetime. I can't believe he was allowed to go to Kansas City, honestly.
Nobody wants to trade players at Kansas City for this reason.
I think even left some on the table. He's going to get better as the year goes on. There was a play on that final drive of regulation. They had to punt the ball away. It was almost picked off by, I believe it was Antoine Winfield, where Pat wanted him to get his head around really quickly, like almost like a pop pass, quick slant type of thing. Yeah. And D-Hop didn't look for the ball. Like that's a little chemistry, opportunity that they're going to get better at as the year goes on. Like there's still more room to grow for this relationship between Patrick Mahomes and DeAndre Hopkins, but he's already making a huge impact. Let's say the numbers, by the way. Travis Kelce, 16 targets, 14 catches, 100 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, 8 catches, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns on 9 targets. So both guys got a lot of targets, but they're creating space for each other. And DeAndre Hopkins is making a huge impact. And I thought the Ravens played great this week. You still got to look at Kansas City and go, they're 8-0, like almost a weird quiet 8-0. And just every week they come out, make just enough plays to win. And we talked about this. We were texting when Tampa kicked that PAT to tie the game at 24-24, rather than trying to go for 2 and take a 1-point lead. I mean, look, and now also, by the way, the final drive, then maybe Kansas City has more pressure on them to put together a drive to get a field goal off in regulation instead of settling for overtime too. So you never know how things would have played out, maybe differently. But I can't believe people play Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City and aren't going for it on 4th down more, aren't trying to put the game in their own hands. Don't leave it up to other people to determine your destiny. Go for it on 4th down, go for 2-point conversions, do everything you can to create margins and edge them out in Kansas City. It's crazy Tampa didn't do that, in my opinion, and it cost them dearly. They never got the ball back in overtime. No. Patrick Mahomes got it, dink and dunk down the field. Let's see it. It was
and let's real quickly talk about that extra point opportunity as well.
Yeah,
kicking that field goal in that rain with the conditions on the field, that's not a guarantee either.
No,
right? Extra points. We've seen a number of kickers over the last several years since they've moved it back miss these kicks. And so your snap to hold the kick operation in that weather, that's not really a guarantee either. And like you said, you go for two, you get Patrick Mahomes to that, I think it was like 4th and 9, 4th and 7, something like that. Now he has to convert that. It's not, oh, no love lost. We can go ahead and punt this ball away and go to overtime. He has to convert that. And, that's kind of the difference. Like you said, put destiny in your hands. I don't think anybody would have blamed Tampa Bay for a loss had they have not gotten that 2-point conversion. But yeah, just hindsight's always 2020. But I think that the aggressive play was what they needed to be because they already had Kansas City on their heels. They arguably should not have been in that game if not for that Travis Kelce fumble, if not for a few penalties here and there that kind of moved them down the field. Like, this is totally different.
Think about it this way. How do I say this properly? First of all, I was holding my breath on the field goal, right? With that, the extra point opportunity, I was like, this doesn't feel safe at all.
No,
But
it
on
was not
top of
safe.
that, you should have your best play. Everyone has got one play you just love on the goal line that you save for that moment. It's like, did they not have a play they really loved? Was it not queued up? Did they not think like our misdirection, our play action, motion guy across into the flat, like misdirection, whatever it is, whatever that looks like for you, you should have one play on the goal line you just love this week. You save for a moment like that. Seems like they didn't have that queued up, which is kind of weird. But on top of that,
I think they burned that play on second down. That the pop pass, not pop pass, but the little out route to Cade Otton.
yeah,
I think that was like their play, and it didn't work. And I don't think they wanted to run it twice. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah. Well, the other thing is the way it worked out by not going for two. You give Patrick Mahomes 2 possessions in a row. I mean, you and me both honestly thought they were still going to win the game in regulation with a field goal because they needed so few yards in Kansas City to go bang, bang, field goal, game over. Like they were lucky to stop them in regulation. To try to stop Patrick Mahomes 2 possessions in a row in a crucial moment, it's just not going to happen. And did the game come down to a coin toss? Yes, it did. And if you win the coin toss, maybe you get the ball, maybe you win, maybe. But why even let it get that far when you could just go for 2 and end it right there? And hindsight 2020, I guess. But I just want to see people go down swinging. It's like I was watching the World Series last week, and you saw Yankee batters with 2 strikes in key moments looking at pitches that were near the strike zone. It's like, dude, you got to go down swinging. You cannot allow your fate to be controlled by someone else. That's crazy to me. And it's frustrating to see that, to not seem to understand the gravity of playing Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City.
Yeah. Man, what a game, and how fun did that turn out to be? Went from saying, hey, we might not talk about this, to, wow, what a game. And certainly just one to enjoy here too, right? Obviously, Chiefs right now, Bucks are 4-5, but not out of their division. We know that Atlanta can be a little bit inconsistent. So we'll see how the rest of the year goes for both teams. But to me, for the Kansas City Chiefs, this might have been their, all right, we're not just this slow, methodical Tom Brady type dynasty team where we're not really going to score points. We're going to beat you with defense. They're like, no. We're about to start putting points up on people. Another week of D-Hop getting better. Isaiah Pacheco could come back for the playoffs. Hollywood Brown could come back for the playoffs. And all of a sudden you're looking at a surplus of weapons. That might have been the game that just kind of things went off and people said, hey, we are not just a defensive team hanging on offensively. We can be a serious threat offensively.
We are running out of games for Kansas City to lose, in my opinion. 2 weeks from now, they play at Buffalo. That's really interesting. That's a great game. That's incredible.
The game. That's like the game.
You think that's a game they lose?
I don't think it's a game that they lose. Again, you know how I feel about Buffalo. I don't think they're truly a complete team. But that could potentially be the game. That one, or late in the year at Pittsburgh on Christmas Day.
Pittsburgh, I think the Chargers also are a dark horse. That's a number 1 scoring defense in football. But to be honest, right, Buffalo's got a shot. The Raiders don't feel like they got a shot. Carolina doesn't. Cleveland is really hit or miss. It's at Cleveland. That's tough, but I think they win that game. Houston doesn't have their top 2 receivers. I think by then Nico Collins will be back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really going to come down to Pittsburgh, Houston, or Buffalo. And I mean, look, do I think they're going to go undefeated? We kind of talk about this every week. No, but it's certainly possible. When you look ahead, it's like
it's looking like
the path is there. I mean, I don't. That'd be crazy if this is the year someone goes undefeated and does what the Patriots failed to do a couple of years ago. I don't think it's going to happen. I say it every week. I think at some point they're going to lose. It's just that's how football works. But what if this was the team? This was the Kansas City Chiefs team that goes 9, not the ones with Tyreek Hill, not the ones with all the star power leading the league in offense, but this version of Kansas City. What if this is the one that goes undefeated and maybe wins a Super Bowl? That would be, and by the way, it'd be their third Super Bowl in a row. I mean, that would be the cherry on top to all that, to do it that style and that way. And it doesn't feel out of the question to me for them to go undefeated, which is
it
a
is
crazy
not
statement.
Out of the question. Not out of the question.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app. Use Prize Picks while you watch NFL games this fall, because making picks makes watching games more engaging, and you could turn something like $5 into $50. Prize Picks offers quick and easy deposits. You can even use Apple Pay. To put your skills to the test in daily fantasy, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS using code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS using code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. Let's talk about the Bears and Caleb Williams. Well, first, let's talk about it. So on this past weekend, NFL Week 9, the Arizona Cardinals beat the Bears 29-9. Caleb Williams, the Bears quarterback, was 22 for 41 passing at 217 yards through the air. He was sacked 6 times. I want to do a whole segment about this. I want to hear your opinion. I want to share my opinion. This is going to be a unique segment. I honestly, like, full transparency to you, Nathan, and the audience, I don't know exactly how this is going to play out, because I've got a lot of film I want to talk about. And frankly, it'll play kind of like B-roll as I talk about stuff, and corresponding clips will play on the YouTube version of the podcast while I talk about it. I don't think you need to see it. It's stuff I'll talk about. It's just kind of supports my opinion a little bit further. We'll hear your opinion. I've got 4 pages of notes specifically breaking down exact plays that I want to talk about. It's going to be interesting. I don't know how exactly it's going to work. It's going to be a unique segment, but I think it's really interesting. Before we do any of that, before I get into what I have to say and share and almost present, for lack of a better word,
get the whiteboard out.
And hopefully I'm very confident I can do it in a way that for audio only listeners, it still makes sense. It's an added bonus to be able to put it on screen as well. But I want to first hear what you've got to say about Caleb Williams, the Bears quarterback. I think my opinion on him will actually surprise you, to be honest, but I'm curious where you think I'm coming at this and what angle you think I have, because I'm not really sure if we haven't talked about this at all. I don't know if you know kind of where I'm coming at with Caleb Williams, but before anything, what's your opinion on him and what's going on this year, and especially this Cardinals game?
Yeah, so if we're talking specifically about Caleb Williams against the Cardinals, I just saw a quarterback to struggle to see what he was looking at. And what does that mean, right? It means when he's dropping back and he's got a clean pocket, he's feeling pressure and his eyes are coming down just a touch. And because of that, he's missing throws, whether that's high, low, inside, outside. He's not completing passes. Follow that up with when there are guys open and the read could be clear, he's got a muddy pocket and he's trying to get out. And to me, what I'm struggling with Caleb Williams is obviously he's great at extending plays and keeping his eyes downfield and trying to get the ball out. He completed actually quite a few of those, or a couple of those, to Rome. I want to say another one to Keenan Allen somewhat late in the game. But I feel like he is struggling to maneuver within the pocket, right? It's always let me get out instead of a slide and adjust, boom, hitch, make my throw. So again, those are 2 things. He's not trusting his eyes. His feet are misaligned. And then when it comes time to feeling that pressure, he doesn't want to stick in the pocket. He's looking to escape. And that's fair, right? When you're getting sacked and you're getting pressure, you want to get out. But that's one thing I'm seeing. On the other side, I'm seeing an offense that is struggling to make the picture clear for him, right? So a lot of, there's this common language of, pre-snap motion and understanding what the defense is, trying to do before the snap. What I'm seeing from Chicago is when they get there to the line of scrimmage, defenses obviously watch film. These players are elite on the defensive side of the football. They're seeing one thing and they're getting that exact thing on the defensive side. So there's no surprises. There's no wrinkles. There's nothing dynamic. So Caleb drops back, a zone play against zone, and he thinks that he's going to have something, and then it's not there because the defense is ready and prepared for it. And then now, again, maybe he had a clean pocket. He's got to scramble. He's got to find something else. Similar deal for man. I'm not seeing a ton of separation, and you figure with guys like Keenan Allen and DJ Moore that you would see more separation, but just not a lot of man separation. It just doesn't seem like, between him and the receivers that they're all on the same page. And so when to cut the route short, when Caleb needs to hang on that read for just a half second longer to give his guy a chance. All those things offensively, I think, are creating problems. Again, so to summarize, he's not trusting his eyes. When he's in the pocket, he's looking to escape instead of maneuver within and make the throw, and then not being on the same page with his wide receivers. I think those things are creating chaos on that offense and making it remarkably difficult to be consistent, right? It looked like, for a 3-game stretch there, things were getting figured out. But when it came time to play, a more solid defense, again, I've talked about Jonathan Gannon getting his guys to play high assignment and high effort football. You play a team that knows where they need to be and when they need to be there, it becomes much more difficult to execute your offense.
Yeah, you're onto something there. I hate to make this comparison, but it actually reminds me a little bit of, gosh, I hate this. Johnny Manziel with the Browns, where Johnny Manziel was doing this for different reasons. He was unprepared and didn't seem to know what he was doing. Caleb Williams' best move right now, and the most productive thing he's able to do, is actually just hold on to the ball, frankly, way too long, extend a play where he's going to be more comfortable and throw the ball on his terms and have receivers come open on his terms rather than, reading the defense properly and getting the ball out in rhythm. He'll hold on to the ball way too long, get outside. You see it early in the first drive to Rome Odunze. Is it Odunes or Odunze? I hear both. I'm not really sure.
I've known it as Adunes.
Odunes, yeah.
Could be Adunze.
It really depends on who you listen to.
Somebody in the comments, let us know how wrong we are, please.
Yeah, someone will. But he's holding on the ball way too long, and
Yes.
I think it comes from a lack of decisiveness. Actually, Tom Brady's talked about this before, and actually, you can even compare him to Jared Goff. Jared Goff has got this incredible completion percentage this year, and it's because he knows exactly where he's going with the football every time. And I heard Tom Brady talk about this during the Lions game, actually, talking about part of accuracy is decisiveness and knowing where you're going with the football. We're seeing Caleb Williams, frankly, inaccurate a lot, missing throws that are not like easy throws. These are tight window throws against zone coverage.
Their first round pick should make the throw.
Yeah,
first overall.
They're tough throws. They're not easy, but it's not wide open. And it's almost like he's having a hard time going from college to the NFL, where it's a little bit faster, windows are a little bit tighter. I'm not seeing what's the word here? I'm not seeing horrible decision making, to be honest, from Caleb Williams. You're seeing the ball often go to the right spot. The location's poor and the timing's often poor. On the very first drive of the game, he throws a ball over the middle. He's really late. You see him he sets up left, comes back over the middle. His hips are lined up, and he holds the ball just a beat too long. And that ball is so late, it allows the safety to come over from behind the receiver, make a play on the ball. If that ball is out earlier, that's a completion, and that should happen. And frankly, watching Caleb Williams makes me really appreciate Tua Tagovailoa in Miami, where you see Tua so often in Miami make throws where he's throwing the ball way before the receiver makes their break. And Jared Goff does this too in Detroit, where he's throwing the ball so early that the defender can't make a play on the ball, but it's anticipating windows, and Caleb is late often because he's waiting until the receiver's already open to release the ball and make that decision rather than throw the ball early with anticipation. He's late all the time. He's missing throws. That's leading to him holding on the ball too long. It's leading to him extending plays and finding other windows to throw the football, but he's not throwing the football within the rhythm of their offense properly, and it's a huge problem. There's a play on a 2nd and 6 on that first drive where he holds on to the ball forever. I mean, it's really just he's running. He literally doubles back across the middle of the field.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, he's got a couple throws. He's not been very accurate. He throws a ball where it's a stop route, but it's left inside. The defender doesn't make a play on it. It ends up being a catch. But if that ball is thrown properly, it's on the outside shoulder, leading the receiver towards the sideline. His accuracy has been really unimpressive this year. But I think, again, it goes back to a lack of decisiveness. He's thinking so much and doing probably more than he should, but he's not pulling the trigger like a guy who's confident and comfortable in the offense. There's a play where he's got a man open, and again, I've said this before, he doesn't pull a trigger on the ball. He holds on the ball, ends up taking a sack.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then some of the throws are uncatchable. He's got a one-on-one to Romo Dunze in the end zone. He throws an uncatchable ball at the back of the end zone. And you're like, it's barely at the back of the end zone. It's not like in the stands, but it's just not, you're not giving a receiver a position to make a play on the ball.
He missed DJ Moore, I think, on two separate occasions over the top, where if he lays it out, it may or may not be a touchdown, but it's certainly a big gain.
No, yeah, you're exactly right. There's a deep ball down the sideline where he doesn't give DJ Moore a chance. It's like, dude,
not at all.
You got one-on-one coverage. And in fact, the one to Romo Dunze is one-on-one coverage. It's two rookies, and you like that matchup. But your receivers in one-on-one coverage can't make a play if the ball's uncatchable. And I don't know what that is. I don't know why he's being inaccurate. He's got a throw where he drops down the arm angle. He actually makes like a sick play, and it's like it looks like Matthew Stafford until you realize the ball's nowhere near DJ Moore.
Bro, they showed that replay on broadcast from all the different angles like 50 times, and I was like, dog, that it was incomplete. Cool that you sat there and you threw it.
Yeah,
but it was incomplete. It wasn't even close.
And I actually like the idea. He's dropping the arm angle, creating a throwing lane. But the ball is super inaccurate. There's another one it's on a corner route. There's two defenders in the area. Ball's uncatchable, so we're near DJ Moore. And you actually kind of appreciate that it's not a catchable ball because either it would have been a hospital ball getting your receiver killed or it would have been a play the defender could make on the football. So again, I go back to, and I guess ultimately I'm agreeing with you that he's not seeing the field very well. He's so often not understanding the offense. And I don't feel a sense of giving up on Caleb Williams. He's just processing really slowly, and he's not very confident in what they're doing. There's another play where he runs himself literally into a sack. His check down comes open. He doesn't throw it, holds on to the ball again too long and run. He just literally, it's almost like he looks at his check down. It doesn't register. And then he takes a sack and you're like, dude, what are we doing? It takes me back to Mitchell Trubisky actually with the Bears, where he also was a quarterback in a similar Bears offense where he just wasn't pulling the trigger on throws that were there and should be thrown.
Right.
He's doing a great job extending plays, getting out of the pocket. But that's really the best thing he's doing. And he's doing it because he's undisciplined, because he's not running the offense properly. It's not always his fault, though. There's a throw, a 3rd and 6. It's a great throw. It's just flat out dropped by Keenan Allen. That's stuff you can't anticipate. That's kind of weird. Do you remember that play? Did you see that?
It should have been a first down. It was wide open, right in his hands. No one's within 10 miles of Keenan Allen. And it was just a straight drop.
The Game Time app is the best place to find NBA tickets. On the Game Time app, you will find affordable tickets that are easy to buy, and here's what Game Time does for you. They've got the Game Time Picks feature, which allows for curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and other events. They've got all-in pricing where toggling this feature shows a total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. There are seat views where you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy your ticket. Game Time has the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And on top of all that, Game Time has ticket coverage where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem with the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. There's a play in 4th and 11 where, and first of all, the offensive line is not perfect in Chicago. Like some of the sacks he's taking are not his fault. Some of them are his fault because he's holding onto the ball too long. Like
Agreed.
6 sacks is an inflated number, should be more like 3, but they're really struggling to block stunts on the offensive line. The left guard and left tackle are just not communicating very well. Either that or I imagine it's the center, not Caleb Williams, sliding the protection. They're sliding it wrong. Protections are often wrong in Chicago. And it's allowing great matchups for guys to come, late with a 5-man rush and just totally come untouched by the left guard.
Yeah.
But there's a 4th and 11 play that isn't on Caleb Williams at all. They run cover 1. It looks like cover 0, but they end up late pulling a safety over the top. And there's nowhere for Caleb Williams to throw the football. It's a great play call by the defense because everyone's running. It's a 4th and 11. You got to get to the 6. There's no outlet underneath. There's no hot route. There's nothing for him to get the ball out too quickly. They blitz everyone other than a safety and man coverage, and he just got to eat the sack because for some reason Shane Waldron doesn't call a play that allows for him to beat a blitz.
Yeah.
In that situation, you got to throw a crosser to someone who's going to make a play, catch the ball short of the sticks, break a tackle, and run for a first down. That's the only way that play gets converted into a first down. If you have everyone running 10 to 15 yards downfield, not even turning their heads quick enough for him to get rid of the football to beat a blitz, you're going to take a sack every time. That's bad play design. That's a bad play call. And some of this stuff is Caleb Williams. Some of this is on the play calling and play design, not scheming people open. But it's enough that there's one-on-one coverage, there's one-on-one matchups where Caleb is missing throws enough that it's not all on Shane Waldron. You can't solely blame him.
No, you're right, and I hope I'm not cutting you off here while
No.
you're going down your list here. But I think that's it, right? The marriage between Shane Waldron and Caleb Williams doesn't appear to be great, and what I mean by that is, like you said, they're not necessarily scheming things open. And what I was referencing earlier is what they are coming out within the offense in their sets is what they are running. Right. Again, if you see a 3x1, you're going to see a pretty typical 3x1 set with an out and up and an in. Something simple like that. Or you're going to run some version of snag where you have something low and then have something high. It just doesn't seem like there's any sort of evolution or something that sets it up where Caleb's like, okay, I'm seeing this. This is where I need to go with the football. Or if I'm seeing this, okay, let me check to play two or alert to play two. Can. What's my next play? What can I get to beat this defense? And whether that's on Caleb, right, and learning an NFL offense and how to do those things, or whether that's Waldron giving him the tools to do it, something isn't quite meshing and isn't quite there. And I think that's why you're seeing these inconsistencies in the offense where you can go against a depleted Rams defense, you can go against Carolina and Jacksonville's defense and see a lot of success. And then a team like Washington or Arizona, where they don't necessarily have the personnel, but they have the defensive coaches who are getting them assigned and aligned. Even just that is making it more difficult on this offense, where it's not just man on man, it is assignments, it's responsibility, and it's understanding what you're looking at. So to me, the marriage isn't working. You know this as a coordinator. Not every kind of coordinator can work with every kind of quarterback. Some guys are better with young guys who are learning the offense. Other guys need a more veteran guy. But on the topic of Shane Waldron, the offense in Seattle was bottom 20 in the league. And before that, he was a passing game coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams for the 2 years that ended up getting Goff kicked out of LA and sent to Detroit, where he's now succeeding. So again, I'm not blaming it on Shane Waldron, but what I'm saying is if we're talking about the passing game in particular and creating these defined, decisive reads and places for the quarterback to go and arming the quarterback with tools in his tool belt to make those adjustments necessary within the play, whether those are cans or alerts, it's not happening. And I'm not sure if it's Caleb's inability or if it's Waldron's teaching, but the marriage is not working.
So here's the truth about Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams and Shane Waldron. And Tom Brady's talked about this a lot. The NFL has been catering their offenses to young quarterbacks rather than running their offense and having a program and developing guys to come along. People are simplifying NFL offenses, and people knock Jaden Daniels and Washington a lot for the simplified, quote unquote, college offense they've got in Washington. However, you look at Jaden Daniels, he doesn't have almost any of the problems we're talking about with Caleb Williams. He is decisive. He knows what he's doing. It's simple enough. He can make a quick decision, put the ball in the right spot. Some of that is him being a great quarterback, and he's a great leader, and he's really accurate. He's been way more accurate than Caleb Williams, but also it's simple enough. He's not thinking, he's reacting. He's reading defenses and finding his best matchups. And I don't know what the right answer is. Do you simplify stuff for a rookie quarterback? Because ultimately what you want is a rookie quarterback to have a good year and succeed, and then you can build from there. And I understand the kind of the old heads, the Aaron Rodgers, the Tom Brady's, the Big Bens who criticize today's NFL for being too simple. But does it matter if you're Jaden Daniels and you're winning and it's working and you're building confidence and you're building a career that is helpful to you? I don't know. Would you rather have Caleb Williams late on every throw and look confused and struggling, or would you rather have Jaden Daniels who's decisive and running a more simple offense that's working really well for him? I think good coaching is adapting your system to your players and then growing from that point. And we saw Bobby Slowick in Houston build a great offense for CJ Stroud, and he processed really well, but he was brought along in a way that made really good sense for him. I think Shane Waldron's overcomplicated stuff a little bit, and Caleb doesn't look comfortable, in my opinion, at all.
Yeah, no, to me, he certainly doesn't look comfortable, and you've pointed out all the reasons why. And I think we've kind of said a few things similar, right? He's indecisive. His feet aren't aligned. He's not navigating the pocket. He's not believing what he's seeing with his eyes. And yeah, that creates the inaccuracy.
The worst play of the day, the most telling one to me, is one we talked about already. It's that first drive of the game, throw over the middle. He pops, he looks left, pops his eyes and his hips over the middle, and holds it for way too long. Releases the ball after the receiver's already in an open window. That's a late throw. That's a throw that is you're allowing a defender to make a play because you're late and not anticipating the throwing lane. And people, I'm not a Tua stan, but Tua, say what you want about him, he's incredible at anticipating windows. That's a throw that Tua completes 10 out of 10 times, or at least he probably hits his receiver in the shoulder pads and it bounces in the air, it gets picked off maybe like we saw against Buffalo. But he's going to put the ball in the right spot on time. And Caleb's late. I want to talk about this though, if I can, sure, Caleb Williams has his flaws. He's not perfect. I think the coaching in Chicago is a problem. They're losing faith in what's going on there. We see the Hail Mary where a guy's like taunting the crowd during the play, like not paying attention. And then we saw at the end of the first half against the Arizona Cardinals this past week, the Bears give up a 53-yard run up the middle for a touchdown with 4 seconds before halftime. That's, first of all, terrible. The effort was awful. But on top of that, that's a huge swing in the game. Like it would have been 14-9 at halftime. You're in the game. Instead, it's 21-9 at halftime. You're way behind. And you just gave up not like a Hail Mary, not like a deep fluky pass against one, man-to-man coverage. You allowed a run up the middle for 53 yards with 4 seconds before halftime. It's shameful that's allowed. But then on top of that, later in the game, and this really speaks, I think, the dysfunction going on in Chicago. They give up a safety, so they're punting the ball away, and they call, because you have to declare an onside kick. They declare an onside punt, which I don't know if you know anything about punting, but they punt the ball straight up in the air, like 10 yards. And Arizona just has like 11 players basically waving their hands for a fair catch, neutralizing any chance at an onside kick entirely. You can't return it. You catch it. It's over. It's so stupid. It's like, man, I just really worry about the coaching. I don't love Matt Eberflus. I don't hate him. He's a good defensive coordinator. The defense at times looked really good, but even that's starting to slip in Chicago. And you don't have a young, dynamic offensive coach working with your, frankly, Ferrari of a quarterback who, say what you want, he's obviously really talented. You watch him make a couple plays every week and you're like, this kid's got something. He's not given the right opportunity. He's not given the right coaching. And I just don't know how you can have Matt Eberflus. Like, how often do you have to see that same cycle in Chicago where you hire a coach who didn't draft the quarterback to try to salvage the quarterback's career that's not going well, that you drafted with someone else? It's ridiculous what's going on. And the Bears just repeat history constantly. And I'm running out of breath. It's just frustrating to me. I really am frustrated with Chicago. And it's some of it's Caleb Williams, some of it's the coaching. I think Matt Eberflus is starting to lose the locker room. And the mistakes being made from a coaching standpoint are infuriating.
Yeah. And let's, again, talk about coaching decisions, right? You had the opportunity to go hire Cliff Kingsbury, a guy who had worked with Caleb in college. You opted to go with Shane Waldron. Okay, you wanted to go with a guy who'd been in a veteran quarterback, had been a coordinator more recently in the NFL. I totally understand. Hindsight's 2020, right? But then the guy that you had fired previously, Luke Getsy, just got fired again in Oakland. So there's this kind of repeated problem of poor offensive staffing that's leading to poor offensive play that doesn't back up the defense. And yeah, I think you're right. There's becoming this frustration with the result. It's really, really hard to go out there and play hard defensively when you don't feel like the offense can reciprocate and set you up. Even if it's not scoring points, sometimes all the offense needs to do is get to the 40-yard line, punt, pin them deep. Then you hold them, then they punt from deep in their territory. Now your offense gets to start from their 45-yard line, right? And now it's easier for them to go drive down and score. So that complementary offense and defense isn't happening. And it does feel like things are slipping. DJ Moore, he was asked on a radio show if he felt like Eberflus was losing the locker room. And he's like, well, I wouldn't say he's not. Like, what kind of answer is that? It's either he is or he isn't. And the fact that you didn't say that he's not losing it tells you that he is. So best of luck to Chicago for the rest of the year. I hope that there's some resiliency left in that locker room to not go down just embarrassed and have this year be a total wash. But I'm not sure what the fix is this year.
I want to say this. It's really important. Hiring an offensive play caller is really, really difficult. And it's not just like we saw Dave Canales, for example, do really well with Baker in Tampa. He goes to Carolina, a very different situation in Carolina, and a young quarterback, Bryce Young, who's not the veteran Baker Mayfield is. And bringing along a young rookie or second year quarterback is not the same as working with a veteran like Geno Smith or Baker Mayfield, or even Sam Darnold, a guy who's been in the league for a long time, and you're not teaching the game to, you're helping them run your system. You're working with them and collaborating with them rather than teaching them. It's a different skill set entirely. And there's so few. Bobby Slowick, I'm really confident, can bring along a young rookie quarterback because we just saw him do it with CJ Stroud. He's the offensive coordinator in Houston. I love Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator in Detroit, but he's working with Jared Goff, a veteran quarterback. He's been around the league for a long time. Are we sure Ben Johnson has the skill set to work with a young rookie quarterback? You know who obviously does? Cliff Kingsbury. He won Rookie of the Year with Kyler Murray. He's got probably another Rookie of the Year with Jaden Daniels. Say what you want about him as a head coach. Say what you want about whatever. He's clearly got the skill set, Cliff Kingsbury, of developing young rookie quarterbacks. And it's just not the same as running a good offense with a veteran quarterback as it is with a rookie quarterback. They're just different skill sets entirely. Like, can we talk about the Raiders, actually? Can we move something up a little bit?
Yeah, real quick, though, before we do get to the Raiders, I just want to shout out Arizona. Jonathan Gannon, they have a 5-4 record now, and they are leading the NFC West division. They have beat the Rams, they have beat the Niners already, and they are truthfully trending up. I think defensively, offensively, I feel like they're inconsistent week to week. But just because you have Kyler, he's going to be able to make some plays that other quarterbacks can't, and potentially keep you in games when you're in dire need. This team, we talked about them not being an easy out. They're starting to look like a really solid team right now, and I just want to make sure that they get credit for the way they're playing. Kyler Murray only had 20 attempts on the day, but
let me cut you off here. I'm so sorry. I want to make sure we get this read. I was going to swing back to this. Sid says, greetings 9 and 32. Sid on Patreon. I did it. My first time in over a decade where I didn't watch the Giants game. I refuse to give the team who brings out 0 passing yards and a half Danny Crimes every week my view. I'm not watching the Giants anymore. I got 2 questions.
Crimes.
And I think we'll just focus on one here. I know it's funny, right? They're starting to call Danny Crimes, which is fun.
Danny Crimes. I love that.
He says, has your opinion on Jonathan Gannon changed? Mine has. He's really, I think, shown, even the way they played Buffalo week 1, like they're not winning. But Arizona's in a really tough spot. It's a total rebuild. They've got a lot of stuff working against them. Jonathan Gannon, actually, unlike Chicago, has his team giving incredible effort, putting their best foot forward every single week. I really have to look at Jonathan Gannon right now and respect what he's doing in Arizona. Especially when he first got hired. Remember, he had some cringy moments in media, and he's just really just come along as a head coach. And
he's got the fire in his gut, baby. He's got the fire in his gut.
Do you have fire in your belly?
Yeah, but no, they out physical, they out assigned, they out aligned. Budda Baker is playing his best football, I feel like, that he ever has. He's always been an elite level player. But I feel like what Gannon's got him doing, he had 10 solo tackles. He is playing at such a high level as the captain of that defense. Just truly impressed with the direction that they're heading, and something that we've talked about, like coaching shows. And coaching is starting to show and come through for this team. They might still be a year away again, just based on personnel across the board, especially when we'll get down later into the season. Guys get banged up. How much depth do you have? But yeah, just Cardinals, man. Shout out to them.
I also think they're the perfect situation to have a defensive head coach. You've got a veteran quarterback who, veteran's a loose word with Kyler Murray, but he's been in the league for a while. It's not as crucial. You bring him along and develop him with an offensive head coach. He's already got an established base in the NFL. He understands defense. You can plug and play multiple offensive coordinators, I think, that can work with Kyler Murray and succeed. So you can have a defensive head coach. It's tough to have a defensive head coach with a rookie quarterback like Caleb Williams, where the guy who's, I don't know that the best guy to work with Caleb Williams is on that coaching staff. And part of it's because your top man isn't working directly with the quarterback week to week. He's not a guy who's known for that. And I just think when you've got a young rookie quarterback, you almost have to have an offensive head coach who's going to work one-on-one with that quarterback. The same way you see, like, I don't know, Mike McDaniel with Tua in Miami, or Sean
Right.
McVay and Matthew Stafford, someone to work and develop them rather than just hoping some offensive coordinator like Shane Waldron, who you hired because that's not your skill set, and you're hoping this random
Right.
guy who's worked in multiple NFL teams can do the job. That's a monumental task of bringing along a guy like Caleb Williams.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there.
With a busy schedule, it's hard to eat the way you'd like. And that's where Factor can help you. They can provide you high quality, never frozen meals where all you got to do is heat up the food and eat. Factor provides a ton of different options. There are 35 different meals you can choose from each week. Gourmet Plus, Keto, Calorie Smart, vegan options, and or veggie. Factor can help you with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Plus, there are even snack add-ons that can keep you fueled between meals. Most importantly, though, Factor can provide high-quality food that's ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Head to factormeals.com/SOS50 and use code SOS50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. That is code SOS50 at factormeals.com/SOS50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. This leads us to the Raiders, and it does all kind of work together. The Raiders have fired their offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy. They also fired their offensive line coach, James Gregg, and quarterback coach, Rich Scangarello.
Mm-hmm.
I think this just highlights, I don't have a lot to say here, but the Raiders are 2-7. They've got the 29th ranked offense in the NFL. And it highlights how difficult it is to find an offensive play caller in the NFL. But on top of that, they're in a bind because they've got a defensive head coach, Anthony Pierce, who I love him. He's does some good stuff. I really like him as a human, and I'm rooting for him. But
might be Antonio Pierce.
What did I say?
I think you might have said Anthony. Just a little comment saver.
Oh, I think it said anyway. Antonio Pierce is a coach, a person I like. I don't think he's the coach of the Raiders next year, as they look like they're going to have a top pick and maybe draft someone like Cameron Ward or something like that and have a rookie quarterback. Is that the guy you want as your head coach when you got a rookie quarterback, and you're going to leave the coaching hire of offensive coordinator to him and his staff and his people? I don't know. I just think if you're going to have a young quarterback, it's really, really crucial you have an offensive head coach to work with that guy and someone who's got a proven history of bringing along said type of quarterback, which is a rookie quarterback. I don't know that Cliff Kingsbury is a head coach for long. He really struggled in Arizona as things went on. And also, you remember, like, stuff went on with Steve Keim, their GM, and there was a lot of drama going on in Arizona. But
right,
I hate to break it to you, man. Cliff Kingsbury will be a head coach again in the NFL, whether that's next year, which I think is actually very likely, or later. I don't know if he's the coach for 10 years of any team he goes to, but he's going to work in a short term because he's going to develop whatever young quarterback they have. The same way he did Kyler, the same way he's doing Jaden Daniels. If the Raiders draft Cameron Ward next year, I think the guy you call first, I know weirdly enough, Ben Johnson's out there, but it's crucial you develop your young quarterback. And we know that Cliff Kingsbury could do that. We've seen it multiple times now from him. And you just can't draft a quarterback number 1 or number 2 or number 3 overall and not give him the right coach the way I think Chicago has with Shane Waldron. Give him a coach that can't develop him. It's just a shame. You just cannot at all do that with young quarterbacks.
I think we're going to see a trend in the NFL start to happen with the success of Cliff Kingsbury. These teams that are play caller needy and are drafting a new quarterback, they may go to the college ranks to bring somebody up to help marry an NFL offense with a college offense until the quarterback can get comfortable, right? We are seeing Daniels do a few more things, but I'd watch out for a name like from the University of Oregon, a guy like Will Stein, making his way out and end up being the offensive coordinator for somebody like for the Raiders. I don't see them firing Antonio Pierce already. Gruden got a couple of years. I don't think that they're going to just hang Pierce out to dry like that, especially because the guys are very vocal that they appreciate him. And also, he made the tough choice quickly. He said, this ain't working with Luke Getsy. He didn't wait until, after Thanksgiving. He didn't wait until however long. He just said, hey, it's not working here. You guys got to go.
Isn't that him scapegoating someone? Isn't that him? Sorry to challenge you, but isn't that him saying, sure, hey, like, let's let him take the fall before I get blamed for this. Isn't that kind of how
It
that's interpreted?
Yeah, it could be, but you said it. Antonio Pierce is not an offensive guy. I
Hmm.
hire you to run my offense, right? And I've got the defense and I've got the special teams, and we're playing feisty, we're playing hard, and the offense can't put. Not only can they not put points on the board, but you're turning over the football, making it easier for defenses or opposing teams to score on us. If it ain't working, it ain't working. And I never want to be the guy because there's a lot that goes into not head coaches, coordinators, and coaches just in general taking these positions, right? You got to move yourself and your family out to a new location, so to get slashed like that quickly doesn't help. But I mean, the track record's not good, and so if you see it trending in that direction, you gotta cut your losses now and then worry about mending the situation later. So I don't mind it. I can actually respect it from Antonio Pierce, a guy whose first time as head coach putting his foot in the ground. I don't think it's a scapegoating situation. Now, if Sirianni were to go out and fire a guy like Kellen Moore, that's scapegoating.
Sure. What about the name Lincoln Riley? Here's my where I'm going to go with this. Let me talk a little bit before you shut it down entirely. I think he's not great at recruiting. I think he's not great at this. I think the world of college football is a little big for him. Um, he's clearly a great coordinator on the offensive side of the football. Like, that's what he does incredibly well. And he develops quarterbacks. Say what you want. Lincoln Riley does exactly that. Why not? Like, look, he's not, I don't think he's going to get fired at USC this year, but if he does, if I'm the Raiders and I've drafted Cameron Ward, I don't give him a 10-year contract. I give him like a 2-year reasonable deal, but I think the lifestyle for Lincoln Riley is an NFL head coach, not having to recruit all offseason, not having to worry about as much, developing a young quarterback. I've actually got a real belief he could do that. Like, work with a guy like Cameron Ward and make him succeed in the NFL for a year or two. Is he your coach for 10 years? He probably hits a ceiling. You got to replace him, but he certainly could develop a young quarterback. And why is that not like a role in the NFL? Hey, you're the coach for 2 years, develop this quarterback, then we're going to find someone to get us to the next level. But I could see someone like Cliff Kingsbury coach rookie quarterbacks for 2 years on different, like, he's a new head coach at a different team every 2 years. I know that's insane. That's
Quarterback
outside the
advisor,
box. But like,
a quarterback's coach.
I guess, but like, I could see him just bounce around the league and just make a ton of money and have that role. And I don't know why that's not. I know it's an outside the box weird thing. You want to be the guy for 10 years at whatever team you're at, but what it just accepting, like, that's the role you're good at, is developing young quarterbacks, and you just bounce from team to team, developing first round picks, because that's what the NFL really needs, honestly, is
Just
someone to develop young first round quarterbacks.
like a QB consultant, if you will.
Yeah, but just be the offensive coordinator of whatever young quarterback got drafted for 2 years and then move on. And I know that's I know no one's going to like that, but it seems like
Yes,
Cliff
it sounds
Kingsbury
a
only
lot.
lasts for so long,
It
right?
sounds like you are describing an offensive coordinator or you're describing a quarterback's coach.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I do
You know,
understand. I do understand what you're saying. I feel like you're just finding a funny way to say
but
hire.
like,
You're
how do
just
you
finding
get,
a funny way to say hire the right offensive coordinator.
but how do you get Cliff Kingsbury to make a lateral move out of Washington? I just don't think you do that. He's got to get promoted up. That's how it works. So you
Right.
promote him to head coach of the Raiders for 2 years, and then when he hits a ceiling, you move on. And just be aware that at some point it's going to run its course, and you have to find a new guy to replace him. But if that's the plan all along, great example is this. Me and Molly, I think, are going to live with her mom sooner than later, because at some point she's going to get old, move in with us. Let's just plan for it now. Let's plan for the inevitable future. Let's buy a house, all three of us. So she's got it all set up. Her room is nice and it's all set up immediately, rather than waiting until she's 80 and can barely walk. And then you're going to move her into your house last minute, unplanned, and no one really has a good time with it. Why don't you just plan for that inevitable reality? The NFL could do that with coaches like Cliff Kingsbury, and it's weird that no one's thought of that. I know that's outside the box. I know, like, that's not how human beings work, but why couldn't it? I know that's a weird thought, but like, that could be a plan. Cliff, you're here for 2 years to develop our young quarterback, and then we're probably going to move on unless you're killing it, and we'll keep you, sure, but you got a 2-year contract, and your whole reason for being hired is to develop Cameron Ward.
I'll let you die on that hill.
Another coach got fired, by the way.
Yes.
The New Orleans Saints lost to Carolina 23-22 during NFL Week 9. The Saints are now 2-7. They just got Derek Carr back. They still lost a pretty horrific game, and they fired Dennis Allen, their coach. Dennis Allen, for context, in 2.5 years went 18-25 as a head coach in New Orleans. He's been a head coach before. He was briefly back in the Oakland Raiders head coach. He was 8 and 28 there. As a head coach throughout his career, he's 26 and 53. Dennis Allen has never succeeded and never worked as a head coach. I hate to say that. I think he's a really brilliant defensive coordinator. I think he's kind of like Steve Spagnuolo. He should embrace that role and do that as long as he possibly can. Go work with Sean McVay maybe in the Rams and just never leave a cushy, good job in a good situation. But I don't think we should see Dennis Allen as a head coach probably ever again.
No, and we talked about it earlier this year in the preview. Dennis Allen might be the first coach to be fired.
Mm-hmm.
And then Clint Kubiak, offensive explosion. They beat, what was it, the Cowboys and the Panthers? We're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, did he save Dennis Allen's job? And then he clearly did not. I think there is more to it this year. It was not only was he almost, halfway out the door already, but then there just started being massive injuries to the team. Shaheed, Olave now with his second concussion, Derek Carr getting injured, a number of guys on that defense being injured as well. Like things from the jump weren't set up for Dennis Allen to succeed, partially by his own doing. Not great on offense, had a stellar defense, but just things were never going to work out, even if everybody was all the way healthy. And then a few injuries start to pile up, and all of a sudden you just can't even recognize the football team. It's sad. Again, you never want to see a head coach get fired, but like you said, he doesn't have a proven track record of success. Everything that we've seen from him has resulted in a team's failure. He took over what I think was a kitchen cupboard that was pretty full from Sean Payton, so I don't think there was a lot of excuses going into it. Just a bad result from the team as a whole this entire year. Dennis Allen obviously at the helm, and ultimately got fired.
Is that a desirable job? Like, would you want to coach in New Orleans?
With their cap situation right now, no.
Why? How bad's the cap situation? They're like 62 million over or something like that, right?
Something ridiculous. So you can't really pay anybody. You can't pay for a great free agent quarterback. Basically, when you get there, what the roster is the roster that you have to work with for 2 years. So it's probably not that desirable of a job. And I'd have to go into the specifics of the cap and what's going on. So I don't want anybody out here to grill me for what I'm talking about. But they are not in a good situation cap-wise. So whoever you bring in as a head coach and a general manager, it's going to be tough.
I have an idea, Nathan. There's a coach recently who's made a comeback on social media. Do you know who I'm talking about?
If you say William Belichick, I'm going to lose my fucking mind.
No, I was going to say John freaking Gruden, dude. He's back on YouTube. He's making videos. He's worked with Derek Carr before. Here's what I'm saying. I don't think anyone really wants the Saints job. If anyone who's not if you can convince someone to take that job, I think John Gruden's the guy because he just loves football. And it's not impossible he succeeds. I know that's a weird thought, but of all the coaches I think you could hire that are probably going to fail in New Orleans, he's probably the least likely to fail of the guys actually willing to maybe take that job. Like, you're not going to get Belichick to go to New Orleans. You're not going to get actually a good name probably to go to New Orleans. That's a fairly okay coach who you might actually be able to convince to go do that job. Does that make sense? Is that a weird thought? Am I just insane this episode?
Yes. That's a horrible thought. I get that it's not a desirable job, but you don't want him near your system. He's old, he's archaic, and while he's a great football mind, and I'd love to have a beer with him and chop up football, he's not the guy I want leading my football team.
But who is then? Like, who is the person to come in and work? Because I think they're going to really struggle to find someone to do. Maybe it's honestly, a good name is Ben Johnson out of Detroit. He's worked really well with Derek Carr, Jared Goff, a veteran quarterback. Maybe he could have a similar approach with Derek Carr.
Yeah, but he's going to take the biggest, best, and sexiest job that's available. And what job that ends up being right now, we don't know. But just to summarize the Saints here. So they're currently $85 million over the cap next year and are required to get under the cap for the start of the new season, or players will automatically be cut. So they can do it by either cutting player themselves or extending their contracts and basically spreading out the money. Guys like Kamara will likely have to be cut. They overpaid Taysom Hill. Marshawn Lattimore is expensive, but then they still have like 25 to 40 million left over that they would have to either pay out or cut. So they, there's just not much that they can do. They don't have a lot of flexibility to make a lot of different decisions.
Can we make a couple predictions? Can we talk about? I really want to focus on Ben Johnson for a moment.
Yeah.
like where there might be availabilities, because we know the Saints are available. I think the Raiders might be available. We're not sure. We saw what was the coach who got fired the other day?
Robert Saleh.
Robert Saleh, the Jets. So I think the Jets are probably out. But where could Ben Johnson go? I think the Saints with Derek Carr are a pretty stable opportunity. You look at the other teams that are going to probably have an opening at head coach. The Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence. That's
Luckily,
interesting.
that's a sexy job if you ask me. You get
Okay.
Trevor. Again, I'm a Trevor Lawrence stan. That
Okay.
he is to me unbelievable. And I know it doesn't always show up in the box score for him, but the way he's willing that team to stay in it against a team like the Eagles last week, his ball placement on some of these touchdown passes or just passes in general. Like if you get the right coach with him, watch out.
I think Ben Johnson's that dog will hunt. Like Ben Johnson of the Jaguars or Trevor Lawrence is a really fun idea.
Yeah.
It's going to be Jaguars.
Dallas job might be open.
Do
Did we
they
already
want
say
a
that?
coach who's going to be as frankly, remember when they didn't hire Sean Payton? Like the Dallas Cowboys seem to, for some
Yeah,
reason, they
but
never
you
hired the
also
best
had to
available
get
coach.
you also had to give up some draft capital for Sean Payton. Like you legit had to trade for Sean
No, no,
Payton.
no. I mean years ago when he went to the Saints.
Oh, years ago.
He
Gotcha.
was the offensive coordinator of the Cowboys, and they didn't give him the job. He had to go to the Saints to become a head coach. And I don't know that Jerry Jones, like for the same reason, I don't think Jerry Jones would hire Jim Harbaugh, for example. I don't think he wants a coach who's the best guy out there, who's going to have an opinion and have,
Right.
decisions that he wants made for him. I don't think Jerry Jones is going to get the best coach on the market. And would you rather be in Dallas with Jerry Jones and Dak Prescott? And Dak has been regressing, in my opinion, and not. I think he's really not himself after getting hurt, and he's been less mobile. Would you rather work at Derek Carr, Trevor Lawrence, or Dak Prescott? Probably Trevor and Derek Carr both before Dak Prescott, in my opinion. And remember, Jerry Jones has also got to be there,
Yeah.
lording over every decision.
Yeah. That's fair. That yeah,
The
I'm
Giants
definitely
job might be
choosing Trevor.
available.
Giant job might be available.
It's not a good
Again,
one.
guys, call me crazy. Miami job might be available. I know that we all love Mike McDaniel and we love
Yeah.
the story that he is and the growth that he's put together with him and Tua. But when push comes to shove, they're not getting over the hump. And you can say injuries, you can say this, that, and the other, but at the end of the day, they're not getting there. You lost another game to Buffalo. And again, we don't need to go down this. I know we're on a different topic, but I think that Miami job could be open. And that job with Ben Johnson would be sexy as well.
I pray for the guy who fires Mike McDaniel. He's going to go somewhere else and succeed, in my opinion. I really, and I don't know. Would you, again? Let's ask this question though: Miami or Jacksonville? Like I don't know that Miami's actually that. Do you want to work at Tua, the guy who's never healthy and this aging receiving core? I guess Tyreek's getting older, and I don't know that Miami's actually a place you want to be right now, given the uncertainty about Tua, given Tyreek's getting older, all the injuries they've had. Does Ben Johnson want to take that job? Probably not.
Yeah, he wants to, and because they've got two great running backs right now. As most are getting old, yeah, but you got A-Chain and you got Justin Wright. If you want to talk about youth on that team, again, already a great established run game, kind of from a similar tree of concepts as far as the inside, outside zone, the stretch, the guard tackle counter. Like it's all there for him. Again, very, very hypothetical in that situation. Let's also step back and think. We're giving Ben Johnson a lot of credit for just running an offense right now. And we know that running a NFL franchise is entirely different than, just being an offensive coordinator.
I also think, again, crazy Zach's coming out this episode. Why would you want to leave if you're Ben Johnson? Every situation you could possibly go is going to be worse. Worse receiving core, far worse offensive line. They've probably got the best offensive line in football. Jared Goff,
one
who's
of the best
dialed in.
offensive lines in, recent memory.
Like you go to Miami, for example, they're not going to run the ball the same way as Detroit because the offensive line's nowhere near as good or as capable. You go to Jacksonville, so many places. I guess my point is this: Ben Johnson's got a great life. He should just ask for a raise, dude. Like, pay me to stay because I want to stay here. I want to stay with this offensive line. I want to stay with Jared Goff, who's dialed in. I got receivers everywhere. I really think Ben Johnson leaving is kind of fool's gold because unless you're going to, I think Jacksonville's a good opportunity, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of these other places you can go either don't have a quarterback or don't have an offensive line or they're bad for a reason because they got a crazy owner. Like, I think Ben Johnson's in a really, really favorable position. And I would just go get a bunch of head coaching offers, say, they're offering me 26 a year. What can you do? like whatever it is, right? Those are crazy numbers, but like, hey,
Right.
use an offer to negotiate a raise in Detroit and stay where you're at and keep winning, having a good time. Because
Yeah.
that's honestly probably your best move if you're Ben Johnson from a logical, peaceful, enjoying life, winning football game standpoint.
Yeah, and maybe from an NFC standpoint as well, you got to pray on the Eagles' downfall, both for your opportunity to move smoothly through the playoffs into the Super Bowl, but also, Nick Sirianni maybe gets ushered out, and that would be, another great job.
Can we talk about Miami a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about Miami.
So the Bills beat Miami in Buffalo this past weekend, 30-27. Look, Miami, they tied the game with 27-27 with a minute
God,
38
so
left.
brutal.
Tua has a great game. Tua was 25 for 28 passing,
Lights
231
out.
yards, 2 touchdowns, and they still lost. And that's a brutal one, man. I really thought, Buffalo gets a field goal at the end of regulation, puts together like a drive in a minute to win the game 30-27. Bills are 7-2. Miami's 2-6. And some of that's because they missed 4 games without their starting quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that, I think that's part of why I think Mike McDaniel probably keeps his job, is he can look and go like, we didn't have a quarterback for 4 games.
Right.
What do you want from me? And we're competing. We're like barely losing to Buffalo, doing everything we can, right? I don't know that Mike McDaniel's really on the hot seat, but what do you make of this game? What we saw in Buffalo this past weekend?
We saw one thing from the Buffalo Bills. It was their ability to keep everything in front of them. They were going to do everything that they could to keep Jalen Waddle and keep Tyreek Hill in front of them. They were not going to allow Tua, even with his arm, to get that ball over the top and have any sort of quick strike touchdowns. So that's what Tua did. He took what the defense gave him. Again, you already said it, 25 of 28, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns. Looked like a clean game. Between A-Chain and Mostert, both of those guys really did what they wanted on the ground. Didn't bust any big ones, but that was kind of the microcosm of the game. There were a couple of big plays, one made by Ray Davis, and then there was 2 separate sacks that Josh Allen on big third downs wiggled his way out of to extend the drive and allow the Bills to keep the football. And outside of those 3 plays, I really do think that Miami outplayed them. But again, their inability to get that big play to change the game. And then on the flip side, getting beat by Ray Davis on that like a 60 or 70 yard screen ball that he took, just an electric play by him, by the way. That was the difference in the game, was literally that one play.
I got a funny note you'll laugh at, but Jordan Poyer is still helping the Buffalo Bills win football games.
The inside operator. I saw that.
He leaves Buffalo, goes to Miami.
That's a bogus call, in my opinion.
Gets an unnecessary roughness call. It was a questionable call. But either way, it gave Buffalo the yards they needed to kick a field goal in the game. And it's just funny that like their former player, probably the guy most excited to try to beat them, ends up giving them the crucial yardage they need to kick the game-winning field goal.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does this change your opinion on either of these 2 football teams? This 30-27 outcome?
It doesn't change anything. I'm still hesitant on the Bills. Again, I want to see. I don't know why I don't have faith in the Bills, despite their 7-2 record. For some reason, I just don't have complete faith in them. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't. And on the flip side with Miami, again, I know that they're protecting that deep ball over the top, but you have got to find a way to get Tyreek Hill and to get Jalen Waddle the football in more ways than just the slants and things over the middle and then some quick screen dumps. And I know that Tua hit Tyreek on a nice deep ball. He floated it over the top right into his pocket. That was great for almost 30 yards. But here's the deal. Like, there's no way that a defense can effectively take away the run game from A-Chain and from Raheem Mostert, but then also somehow be able to effectively take away Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. To me, again, that is that is play calling and scheming up against the defense. It didn't seem like there was any sort of adjustment from Miami from the first half to the second half to start unlocking those big plays. They just kept running the same things and the same things. And granted, that gave them the opportunity to win. To me, this game falls on the defense, kind of falling short and not allowing this game or allowing this game to ultimately be won by the Buffalo Bills with that last second field goal. But again, like there was no way found to unlock these guys. And I just don't think with two guys who are that talented, the run game that you have, that you can't find a way to do it.
I think we just stumbled on. So last week during episode 277, you asked me about the Bears and Caleb Williams. I feel like I didn't have a great answer, and I pulled out the film. I went back and watched a lot of stuff. This might be worth a breakdown. This Miami game, why are they struggling to run the football and also not stretching the field? Like what is it? What are they doing that's so flawed that they can't
Yeah.
get one of the two aspects of this team to finally make it happen? Their
Yeah.
longest throw of the day was 28 yards.
Right. And
Like,
again, like, yes, Tua completed 25 passes, right? 8 of those were to Devin A. Chain.
yeah, underneath
Which,
everything's
which
underneath.
tells me that those are behind the line of scrimmage, right?
Yeah.
And again, I know that the Buffalo Bills want to take away that space that Tua likes to play right in the seams in the middle of the field, right? So he can get it out on time. But goodness gracious, you've got to find something else. You have to.
I'm starting to. Your lack of belief in the Buffalo Bills is kind of weird. Here's where I'll challenge you a little bit.
Weird.
So Amari Cooper was out in this game. They found a way to win without him. But on top of that, like,
Okay, so you beat a struggling and down and out
here's
Dolphins
where
team.
let me say this. Your argument is always, well, they're down playing in the mud with Miami, for example, or whoever. Like, why are they barely beating this team? Kansas City's 8-0 with a bunch of sketchy wins over a bunch of bad teams. And yet we believe they're now part of it's because that's Kansas City, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's who they are. But my
Exactly.
point is, like, I just don't. A win is a win, and in a key crucial moment, Josh Allen put together the game-winning drive to go
He
win a
did.
football game. It's hard for me to take away success from someone.
Mm-hmm.
This is not like we've seen teams in the past, like Fool's Gold wins, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is that. I think the Bills really are on the cusp. They're probably the third best team in the AFC. They're a borderline Super Bowl team. It's gonna come. We both know their season's gonna come down to, can they beat a Kansas City or a Baltimore in a meaningful spot? But I don't know why you doubt. Like, they're the third best team in the AFC, and yet you're like, I'm not confident in them. It's like, dude, no. What do you doubt that they can beat those two teams? Is that the only thing left for you to doubt about them?
Yeah, those two teams, and then the rest of their schedule, I see a number of games to challenge them. Kansas City's on their schedule, San Francisco's on their schedule, the Rams are on their schedule, and Detroit are on their schedule. And all of those games are 4 games in a row. And all of those teams not only have solid defenses, Rams excluded, but what they have is more capable offenses to
Yeah.
punch back when Buffalo is able to throw a punch. Again, they got blown out by Baltimore. They were unable to beat Houston. Those are the two best teams that they've played. They beat the Jets right after firing Robert Saleh. They beat up Tennessee, but who hasn't done that other than the Patriots? LOL. That was a close game. Seattle, they blew out. Great. And then Miami, they go toe to toe. So again, great. You win the games that you should win. To me, there's just a higher standard for what Buffalo needs to achieve for me to have belief in them. I think that they've got a lot of great weapons. Now with Ray Davis and James Cook, I think that needs to be their tandem. They need to get Ty Johnson out of there. Hopefully Amari Cooper comes back and he feels more integrated into their offense and maybe things look better. But my doubt is in their defense. My doubt is in their defense. Anytime that they've played decent teams, defense or decent offensive teams are giving up 30 plus points, and that's going to come back to bite them.
I'm curious. What's the expectation for you with Buffalo then? You doubt them. What does that mean? What's the consequence of that? They just can't win those. They can't beat Baltimore or Kansas City.
Consistently beat playoff teams this year.
Yeah.
The two playoff teams that they've played, I don't think Miami's going to end up scraping in. The two teams that they've beat, I'm sorry, the two teams that they've lost to this year are likely going to be playoff teams. And everybody else that they've played, they've beat. And not every team can be a playoff team, but I would like to see coming down this stretch again in a couple weeks, you got Kansas City, San Francisco, the Rams, and Detroit, what this team looks like. And again, Josh Allen is the X factor. In any and every one of those games, they have an opportunity to still be in the game because he is that great. I just think defensively, they are not great, although they are getting better. Sean McDermott's doing a great job. And then offensively, we'll see how this addition of Amari Cooper continues to allow them to grow. I just don't think that they're a contender. And I think that's the big difference here is everybody wants to put them in that, they have an opportunity. They don't have an opportunity to get to the Super Bowl. And I just want to make that clear to everybody. That is my opinion. Say what you want about it. They're a first round exit team. Divisional round, they're gone.
To me, that stretch from NFL Week 11 to Week 15 is what we're going to use as the determining factor of this Buffalo Bills team. Again, you said it earlier. Week 11, they play Kansas City at home in Buffalo. Then they got a bye week. Then they host the 49ers. Then they play at the Rams and then at Detroit. Those 4 games are the 4 that's going to basically determine how we view Buffalo from here on out.
Yes.
Right?
And I will have no problem changing my opinion. If they go 2-2 in that stretch and their 2 wins are Kansas City and maybe the Rams, I'm going to view them a little bit differently. If they have just any combination of 2 wins there in that stretch, I'd be like, you know what? I've got a little bit more faith in this team.
2 wins and 2 really tough close games, probably, I would think too.
Yeah, if they get blown out in one of those losses, I'm going to talk about the inconsistencies.
Can we talk about Detroit?
Oh yeah, we can.
Detroit beat Green Bay 24-14 this past weekend. It was the first outdoor game of the year for the Lions. Oh no, what are they going to do? They played great. The Lions are now 7-1. Jared Goff on the game, 18 for 22 passing, 145 yards, had a touchdown pass. What stands out to me about this game, a couple plays. There was a goal line fade to Amon-Ra St. Brown, like a stutter whip route fade ball.
It was so crisp.
Oh, dude, it was incredible. It was beautiful. 4th and goal, too. 4th and goal from the 2.5 yard line. They throw that.
You ever see the Bears run that play?
No. There's a reason. I'm curious, man. I know one of your fantasy players played in this football game. Nathan run the damn ball. Talk to me about this game. First of all, let's talk about Detroit, then we'll swing her back to Green Bay. But it's a dominant, statement win from Detroit, in my opinion. Do you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, generally. I'm not.
You don't like the 24-3 lead or whatever it was?
I do. It was 20.
Yeah.
It was 24-3. It was dominating. Yeah, it was dominating. There's no other way to slice and dice it. I feel like the Packers allowed them to dominate more so than the Lions come out and dominating. But then once the second half started, yeah, I do think that the Lions flexed the muscle. Once they flexed that muscle, they just put it in cruise control and just, made their way home.
I got to say, I was never worried about the rain. Like that rain narrative, it's first outdoor game. Well,
I was worried about it.
Dude, their style of play is so conducive to that. It's a team that runs the football a ton, right up your throat. Right. They're very physical. Like their style of play is actually very conducive. It's actually weird this team plays at a dome. Like this team is built to play in the mud, and yet they play most of their games indoors, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, I think that was more Goff's history than just the team's history as a whole. Him as like a literal passer and thrower of the football. There were some pretty damning numbers a couple years ago. Obviously, that narrative has changed. But you're right. There's 2 scoring drives in the first half were 13 plays and 10 plays. One ending in a touchdown, one ending in a field goal. And you got to feel good if you're Green Bay about that. You were also gashing them in the run game with Josh Jacobs. And the interception or the pick 6 that Jordan Love threw was so inexcusable. And that's what completely changed the game, right? Because not only did you give them a score to close the first half, then they have the ball to start the second half. So whatever Ben Johnson's cooking up at halftime to try and get the offense reinvigorated, now they score again, and now you really can't utilize the run game. I would have liked to have seen in their first 2 drives more of a concerted effort to run the ball. I know that they ran it with Josh Jacobs in that first drive coming out of halftime. But that's why it's hard for me to say that it was a complete Lions domination. When Jordan Love was banged up, it was clear and it was visible to me he was hurting the team being in the game because of his lack of mobility, inability to step into some of the throws and drive the football with the rain and the weather. And I think that just allowed the Lions to pin their ears back and attack. And just, I think that pick 6 by Jordan Love is truly what changed the game.
It's especially tough when you've got a really capable backup, Malik Willis, who's won you games this year. Like you know, you got a guy who can come off the bench and perform.
Right.
And this interception, the pick 6, 32 seconds before halftime. I remember thinking to myself, like, are you sure you want to try to put together a drive here? Why not just take a knee and go to halftime? And they were aggressive. They tried to make something happen. And Jordan Love, look, the broadcasters even blamed it on the injury. He's banged up. And I don't think that's an injury mistake. That's a terrible decision. Take the sack. throw the ball away. Do not put the ball in harm's way. Like you just, I'm sorry, but as a quarterback, you got to know, like in that situation, you cannot put the ball in traffic. And he
Yeah.
throws like a screen pass into traffic for no reason. And it's
You got
like,
to
dude,
dirt
that's
that
a
one.
total avoidable mistake that
Right.
doesn't need to be a ball that's even in play, let alone a pick six.
Yeah, and the injury did play a role in that play. Obviously, Jordan Love couldn't get out and escape like he
Mhm.
wanted to. But at that point, once he recognizes it, like you're saying, throw it away or dirt it.
Fall to the ground. Dude, I'd rather you take
You
the sack.
you can take that sack and then guess what? Okay, now
Go to halftime.
now you go to halftime,
Yeah.
right? But then you take away the one thing that was truly working for you, which was the run game. Josh Jacobs over 105 yards at halftime, total yards receiving and rushing.
Yeah.
And then he just became a non-factor in the second half of that game. And I'm not sure how LaFleur feels about Jacobs as a pass catcher. Because it's clear that they went to Emmanuel Wilson. I can't remember the name of the third string that was in there as well. But yeah, Josh Jacobs essentially became non-existent, and they just kept throwing the rock and throwing the rock and throwing the rock. And I get that you're down, and I get that you're behind. But yeah, throwing 39 times in a storm like that is just not the position that you want to be in, and you put yourselves in that position, and that's the more frustrating part. So like, I'm going to give the credit to the Lions. Again, they showed up. They dominated the hidden quarter, right? The end of the second half or into the first half, beginning of the second half, the hidden quarter, they dominated in that time frame, and they set themselves up to just cruise to a victory.
It was 24-3 very early in the third quarter, and then Detroit did not score again.
Yeah.
And to me, it comes across like Green Bay kind of panicked. They basically abandoned the run. And
Mhm.
I think in that situation, in that weather, we saw Kansas City tonight on Monday Night Football. Kind of there was a moment where they needed to refocus and they went back to playing physical and running the football.
They gave it to Kareem Hunt 3 straight times.
I,
They
I
said, boom, boom, boom.
I don't care if you're down 24-3. At some point, you just need to put together a scoring drive. It doesn't matter how you do it. It
Right,
doesn't matter if you take time off the clock. Like, is a 3-and-out with 3 passes really as good as a long, sustained drive running the football that burns a ton of time on the clock? Maybe, but at
right.
least you score a touchdown. Like, I just think Green Bay kind of abandoned their identity on top of playing a quarterback who was hurt and struggling and trying to throw the ball
Yeah,
in this horrible rainstorm. It's really abandoning the run that I think is the sin here, because I just think we need to get away from this mindset that just because you're down doesn't mean you can't run the football. No, that's how you actually often recenter and refocus your team and do what the
right,
offensive line wants to do. And it was weird to frankly get away from the run as much as they did. I know the situation's not in your favor, but you still got to run the
right.
football in the second half.
Yeah, that. And again, we know that it's pouring rain out there. It's not going to be very easy to complete passes. You've got a quarterback with a groin injury. It was clear
Yeah,
that he was having problems stepping into throws or making the off platform throws that makes Jordan Love so hard to defend, right?
yeah.
You needed to find a way to, again, continue to run the football. Again, it's hard when you're down 24-3, but like you said, you put a scoring drive together, even if it takes 7 minutes in that third quarter. Okay, now you're down 24-10. Now you get the ball back. Maybe there's a special teams touchdown. Maybe you get yourself a pick six. Just or maybe they fumble. It's wet outside. Maybe Jameer Gibbs or Montgomery gives one up. Any number of things could happen, and then the game script can flip. Um, yeah, I would have loved to have seen the way that they were running the football come out in the second half and say, "Hey, I know we're down, but we're going to put a scoring drive together and lean on the run game."
I guess I want to. This is one thing I think maybe I'm being too harsh on this abandon the run thing. They had 4 drives in the second half. They had a 3-and-out punt right after that touchdown by Detroit. Then they had a 10-play, 89-yard field goal drive. Then they have this 11-play, 74-yard drive. They have a turnover and downs on 4th and 1 on the 9-yard line. They try to run with Josh Jacobs up the middle, get stuffed. And they have a 9-play touchdown drive, 55 yards. They score with 3:49 left to make it 24-14. Like, they only had the ball 4 times, and they scored on 2 of those 4 drives in the second half. It's not like they were, I guess, super irresponsible. And even that 4th and 1, they
Hmm.
went down running. So maybe it's a bit harsh to say they abandoned the run. But I don't know, man. I just, to me, like, it felt like they didn't really, give Josh Jacob enough touches in that second half. It's kind of how it felt. But ultimately,
No,
looking back, it's like, well, they scored on 2 of their 4 drives. one is a 3-and-out, one's a turnover and downs. It's not like I don't think it's that terrible of management, I guess, by the Green Bay Packers. I think honestly, with hindsight, I came down kind of hard on them a minute ago.
Run the damn ball.
The Ravens beat Denver 41-10 this past weekend. The numbers are crazy from the Ravens, by the way. Lamar Jackson, 16 for 19 passing, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns, incredibly efficient, ton of yards. King Henry, Derrick Henry, 23 carries, 106 yards, 2 touchdown runs. Lamar basically didn't run the football at all, 3 carries for 4 yards. So this is just high-powered, impressive offense, a dominating performance by the Ravens. We flirted with the idea maybe Denver can challenge Baltimore. No, not a chance. I don't have much to add. We talked about it last week. I wanted to acknowledge it. What do you make of this game, Nathan?
I do think that there was a moment where the Broncos could have challenged the Ravens. And then it came down to Zay Flowers into the first half having the touchdown which completely changed the game, right? What was the score? I think it was 10-17 at the time. Where oh my goodness, what are the words that I'm trying to say right now?
We were texting each other, and I remember it was the score. It was the game was close. It was 17-10.
Yes, it was 17-10, right? So the game is manageable, right? You gave the ball back to the Ravens. There's not a ton of time left on the clock. You can go into halftime knowing that, hey, in the second half we can just keep things muddy, try and play strong defense, and keep things rolling. But then that touchdown by Zay Flowers meant, okay, in the second half, now it's 24-10 instead of 17-10. We have to throw the rock. And then you unleashed the Ravens pass rush, their ability to get to the passer. You didn't get to really attack their weakness, which right now is the run game. And at the end of the day, Baltimore offensively just started to flex the muscle. I think they had a slow start and maybe got caught off guard by what the Broncos had cooked up. But Derrick Henry over 100 yards rushing or close to, and 2 touchdowns. Again, Lamar Jackson, perfect passer rating. Couldn't miss even if you asked him nicely. It was, they ran into a buzzsaw. Like we said, it looked like there was a moment where the Broncos could have maybe not run away with this thing, could have kept this thing close. But ultimately, the Ravens roster, and I think that's the biggest difference, is the roster top to bottom for the Ravens is just far superior to the Broncos. We already know that the Broncos are perhaps overachieving with the talent that they have, both offensively and defensively. Now, when you show up and you play a team like the Ravens that are complete offensively and defensively, now you got a problem.
Yeah, I don't know much to add. I think it's an impressive game. It doesn't really change my opinion on Denver. I think they were outmatched. I think the game got away from them. Again, that crucial play by Zay Flowers, we were texting about, like, that was the dagger that put the game out of reach. They hung around for a little bit, and then the game got away from them. But I don't look down too harshly on Denver. I don't know if you do either.
No.
It's like, you just got outmatched by one of the best teams in the AFC.
You did. And here's the thing is, I don't think Bo Nix looked overwhelmed at all either. It just looked like it was a game where they went out there and got their ass whooped. At no point did I feel like, oh man, this guy's swimming. He can't find anything. He can't do anything, because he was moving around. He was using his legs. I think he had, over 30 yards rushing. He was scrambling. He was doing what he could to kind of keep the team alive. It didn't look like a Bryce Young performance.
Yeah.
What we'd have seen from Bryce Young in a situation like this, I think looks a lot different than how Bo Nix ended up landing. But again, Ravens are a top team in the league right now. Their offense has turned into a machine. Lamar Jackson playing at probably his highest level ever. And it feels like we say that at some point in every regular season for Lamar. He's just playing at such a high level from the quarterback position. The way he's dropping back, does it in such a unique way. He'll fake these quick pumps. He's playing it in his own style, in his own way, while still kind of also molding it with this NFL style prototypical quarterback. He's playing really special right now.
I think Lamar is starting to get those voices. Is he a running back? Should he run the ball less? He's got to throw more. Like, all that nonsense is kind of getting out of his mind. He's just doing what works for him and stopping. He's not worrying what other people think as much.
Yeah,
and it shows on the field. To me, I want to have an interesting conversation about MVP, because it feels like it's either Lamar Jackson or Jared Goff right now are probably the MVP frontrunners in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think Jared Goff's a bit of an underrated, story there. Just how efficient he's running this offense, how effective he's been, his completion percentage. And I also know that MVP voters get tired of voting for the same person over and over again. We see it in the NBA with LeBron James, for example, where we saw that for years, and he was kind of the dominant best player in the NBA.
Right.
I wonder if Jared Goff maybe he's got a better shot than people realize. That's who I would kind of point to, him or Lamar Jackson to me are the MVP. What do you make of that idea?
Yeah, Lamar Jackson right now is the MVP. I think it's between three guys, and one guy kind of reinserted himself into the situation tonight. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes to me are the MVP candidates, and
Didn't
I
even
don't think it's
consider
particularly
Goff.
close. I don't consider Goff, unfortunately.
Well,
Not
let me
even
say this.
unfortunately. I don't consider Goff because it seems like it's the team around him, right? And like you were talking about earlier, he's decisive with the football, which is creating success for other players. I'm not sure the performance it's going to take a performance where he has to air it out, 45, maybe 40 times, right? And he has 4 touchdowns and he can come from behind because right now they don't necessarily have to come from behind. They're just out there dominating people. I don't know what it's going to take. Maybe he's just too plain. Maybe it's literally looking so clean and so easy. It doesn't feel like he's playing like an MVP caliber player. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's hitting throws, but I can't think of a spectacular throw that he's made. And they're winning games, but I can't think of a game where I'm like, wow, he really went out there and won that game for him. Do you know what I'm saying? And
No,
again,
no.
this is not saying he's not playing superb, which he is. You
Let
look
me
at the
let
stat
me
sheet;
read you the
it's
stats, man.
video game numbers, but it doesn't feel like he's doing that. It's like the game a couple weeks ago where he had no incompletions. He had a perfect game. Everyone's like, oh wait, oh shit, he had a perfect game. It didn't feel like you know what I mean? And it's weird to say he doesn't feel because obviously the stats and the results are one thing, but it just didn't feel like it. I don't know.
Here's a really bad thing for the MVP candidacy of Jared Goff. His best game with the most yards and most throws, 34 for 55 passing, 307 yards, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, is in their only loss of the year to Tampa. So the one game where they aired it out, they lost and he had 2 interceptions. But I will say this, I want to say this in fairness to him. How many quarterbacks could run this offense the way he's doing it? And it's again, one game was 18 for 18,
Yeah.
another game 22 for 25, 12 for 15, 18 for 22. Like really, he's got a 74.9% completion percentage. I just look around the NFL. How many quarterbacks can do that? Caleb Williams couldn't. I don't think Kyler Murray could. Maybe Brock Purdy could run that offense that way. I don't think Trevor Lawrence
Mm-hmm.
could. I think CJ Stroud might be able to. Like, there's just so few people
Right.
that could run this offense the way he's running it. And again, he's been so decisive. Like he is the driving force. I mean, he's a quarterback, but he's the driving force behind this offense succeeding. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen without him.
And that's the thing. Drilling oil isn't sexy. Right.
I like
It's
that.
not sexy, but it makes a crazy amount of money. If you've got an oil well, you're stupid rich. And that's what Jared Goff is right now. He's working the oil well. He's keeping the machine going and he's doing it at a ridiculously high level
He's a
and
little
cashing out.
roughneck, man. I like it.
But you know what's sexier? Owning a tech company and living out in Silicon Valley, right? Or maybe you're down in LA. Who knows?
You live in Silicon Valley, and you said I think it's Silicon Valley, dog. I'm just being funny. I'm such an asshole. I'm sorry.
No, but you ruined the story and the crux, the exclamation point I'm getting to.
I'm sorry.
So just guys like Lamar and Pat and Josh,
Yeah.
because of their physical presence and ability on field to make plays outside of the pocket, it just looks sexier. And that's the difference. There is a certain sex appeal that comes to MVP voting, and those guys have it. And unfortunately, Jared Goff doesn't.
Style points matter, is what you're trying to say.
Style points matter.
Yeah. Philly beat the Jaguars 28-23 this past weekend. Philly 6-2. The Jaguars are 2-7. It was close. Despite, I think Trevor Lawrence kept him in the game. I know his stats are bad, but watching it's like, he's really like 2 interceptions, not great, 16 for 31 passing. I don't know. What do you make of this game? We put it on our list to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, it's a game that to me shouldn't have been close. And to me, it's a game that without Saquon Barkley, I'm not sure what this offense can do. Unfortunately, A.J. Brown also left early in that game.
Yeah.
This offense is not the same without A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. One more so than the other, in my opinion, and that's A.J. Brown. But it's just not the same. It's harder for them to get things going. And, fortunately, Saquon was in an unreal flow state that game. Yeah, obviously, everybody's seen the highlight play. But that was ultimately the difference. We talked about it earlier between the Ravens and the Broncos. Just the difference in rosters was to me the biggest difference. Top to bottom, the Eagles are more talented offensively and defensively. I think it's a little bit closer than people realize. Yeah, the Eagles were just a better team. They had the run game going. Jacksonville had no run game going. They really didn't have anything going. So it's, to me, shocking how this game ended up being as close as it was and requiring Philly to, have an interception to kind of seal the game. So it feels weird for Philly not to have dominated this game, but that's kind of what we've seen, from Philly a couple times, games where you feel like that they should have complete control and kind of run away with it. They just haven't really done that.
They're 6-2, and I'm really unimpressed, and I guess the word is almost like unintimidated by it. Like if my favorite team was playing Philly, I'm not like, oh no, it's a juggernaut.
Right.
They're
And
surviving their way to 6-2.
in this win streak that they've been on, and again, I know I like to talk about competition of who you've played, and at the end of the day, your record is your record, right? It doesn't matter who you've played.
Sure.
A bad Cleveland team, a bad Giants team, a Cincinnati team that cannot play defense, and a very bad Jags team. So since, coming out of the bye, they've got a couple of wins now. They had one before. They lost to Tampa Bay, which looks like one of the only teams that they've played that has any sort of offensive semblance, other than Green Bay and Atlanta in those first 2 weeks. So, like you said, not impressed, but they're winning games, and you get credit for that in the NFL. It just feels like they need to be more dominant with the weapons that they have on both sides of the football.
Something we've talked about previously, but it feels to me like Doug Peterson is going to get fired. And I wonder, what do you think the opinion of Trevor Lawrence is, like from prospective head coaches who might come to Jacksonville next year? Do they want to work with Trevor Lawrence? Would they be excited to work with him?
Yeah, any GM would be. There's probably, 6 or 7 GMs that wouldn't take the phone call if Trevor Lawrence was on the trade block. If you're going there, you are getting a franchise quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. And again, there's only a few GMs and few coaches who wouldn't want to work with a guy who has the IQ, who has the arm talent, and just has the will to fight. Things have not been easy in Jacksonville since he arrived. And although he hasn't necessarily risen above it like a guy like Andrew Luck has, when he first got to Indianapolis, he's stayed true to the team. At no point has he thrown anybody under the bus or pounded. He's just kept fighting. And that's part of the resiliency that you want to see from a young quarterback, regardless of situation.
Can we switch to college football?
Yeah, let's talk about college football.
We saw number 4 ranked Ohio State beat number 3 ranked Penn State in Penn State at State College, 20-13 this past weekend. For me, honestly, it was kind of a quarterback bid-off. Will Howard against Drew Aller. It's like, and neither one of these teams has a very compelling quarterback. What really stands out to me, Will Howard had a pick 6. Yep. He had a throw to Carnell Tate that should have been a touchdown, wide open. He totally missed it, threw it out of bounds. And then he had a fumble through the end zone. Like, I feel like they won almost in spite of Will Howard. He talked all this trash. Penn State didn't recruit him. He didn't exactly make people feel like they were missing out on much, in my opinion. And then I look at Drew Aller and Penn State, and I wonder if they've got, frankly, a quarterback coaching problem. Because I watched Sean Clifford there. I've watched quarterbacks for years under James Franklin come and go. And quarterbacks are never getting it done at that level they should at Penn State. And Drew Aller has every tool. He's tall, got a great arm. He's moving well within the pocket. Seems like everything he can control. Yeah, he's doing well. I just wonder, is he not coached properly? Is there an aspect of how they're approaching coaching quarterbacks isn't good enough? Because I don't see any reason for him to not succeed. What do you make of this game, Ohio State beating Penn State this past weekend?
Yeah, honestly, I thought that as good as the Penn State defense was, I thought Ohio State's offense, much like they did against Oregon, was going to be able to put up more points than they did. I thought this game was going to be closer to like a 35-13 or 35-17 in favor of Ohio State. But like you pointed out, Will Howard, to me, is holding this offense back. not holding this offensive, holding this offense back.
Yeah.
We've seen a number of QBs from Ohio State. It's plug and play at this point. Whoever you drop in there ends up having just a record year, right?
When Chip Kelly's dialing up great play calls, by the way, too. Like everything is working in this offense except for the quarterback who just keeps making some crucial mistakes.
Right. And if you don't have a guy who can deliver the football on time and on location, you're going to have a tough time winning football games at any level. We've said that a number of times throughout this year. And not to throw a stray here at Carson Beck, but another guy who's holding back his team's offensive production.
Yeah.
We're not asking you to do a lot. We're just asking you to get it in the hands of the playmakers, and that didn't happen. As far as, Penn State, defensively, man, they're serious up front, and they're able to create a lot of pressure, and I think that frustrated Will Howard. But then offensively, for the past several years, just not able to get it done. Again, I think the last time they had an even a remotely explosive offense was when they had, guess who? Saquon Barkley. So they need to figure out the quarterback position. They need to figure out some sort of offensive identity to help get them over the hump. Because right now, just having a great defense isn't going to win the Big Ten, and certainly not going to win you a national championship.
Yeah, I just go back to Cameron Ward, man. He was out there, he was available. Ohio State didn't want to pay him the money, and I really think this is an Ohio State team worthy of a national title, other than the quarterback position. And it just couldn't be more clear to me. Like, you cheaped out on the quarterback, and if you don't win a national title this year because Will Howard holds you back, that was an avoidable mistake that you kind of shot yourself in the foot by not pursuing the best quarterback in college football.
Yeah, who was the quarterback at Ohio State last year? I think he ended up at Syracuse, I want to say.
Oh, yeah. It's a great question. Let me find it. I'll find his name real quick. His name is Kyle McCord.
Kyle McCord, right. I didn't think that there's that much of a difference between McCord and Howard. And if anything, McCord, you would have had another year in the system, a little bit of more.
I don't know about that because
actually that's
Chip Kelly,
right? Because Chip Kelly's in there.
But how much did they keep
familiarity with the roster? Right.
We don't know. I mean,
right. So,
because how different are Ryan Day and Chip Kelly's systems when they Ryan Day was a quarterback under Chip Kelly at New Hampshire. Like maybe the terminology was the same the whole time. We don't even know.
Yeah. At the end of the day, again, quarterbacks held back both teams, but the team that was more talented, on both sides of the football, Ohio State, because of that gracious NIL money, was able to win the game.
Sorry to cut you off there.
And not by a wide margin either. Like this game came down to a few questionable calls.
Yeah, some replays that were crucial.
Yeah. So it's tough, either way. Again, Penn State's not good enough to win the Natty. Ohio State, they just need Will Howard to turn a corner.
Talking about replays, this is a call out of left field, but on Thursday Night Football last week, we saw, I know it's Halloween, I don't know if you were doing, but there was a catch by Garrett Wilson that he gets 1 foot down and then the shin.
Yep.
And then the knee of the same leg on the shin lands out of bounds. They rule that a catch. And I'm just like, I don't think I know what a catch is anymore. Like I was confused. I didn't realize the shin counted as a major body part.
Yeah. Your shin, a knee, a
Has
shin.
Has it always been that way? Am I an idiot?
Yes. A knee, a shin, 2 feet, forearm,
a
hip. Those are all body parts. But if it's just your feet, you got to have 2 feet.
So if I catch the ball and then I get a whole forearm on the ground and that's the only part of my body that touches the ground, that's a catch?
I believe so, yes.
I don't know how that would ever happen.
Now I actually got to triple check that, but I'm 97% positive that a forearm in means a catch.
Isn't it a weird thought? Like you catch it and your whole body lands out of bounds, but your forearm is down in bounds first. I love that idea. I just want to see these calls. I'm just getting more and more because I saw a catch made by Zach Ertz. Now the ball looked like it came out a little bit early, but it was so close to a touchdown. They ruled that not a touchdown. And I was like, this is getting just so marginal now that I'm brought back to Des Bryant and the catch back in the day. What are you looking at?
I'm looking at the catch rules right now. Whatever, we'll find it later. But I'm pretty sure a forearm down does complete the catch.
Let's talk about your birthday present, if I may. By the way, happy late birthday, Nathan. It was Saturday.
Thank you.
And on your birthday, your favorite team got a pretty big win. The number 1 ranked Oregon Ducks went into Michigan at the Big House and beat Michigan 38-17. I got to hear your thoughts about this game. What'd you think of Oregon kind of giving it to Michigan?
I was impressed, and I love the response and the environment. Going into the Big House is not easy, but the team felt and looked composed and kind of took control of the game from the jump. I love to see that. I don't really have much else to say because I try to watch the Duck games as a fan and not trying to go too hard into analysis. But all I'm saying is if Michigan had a competent quarterback, that game would have been very different. There's so many plays that they just can't complete because between who's the walk on? Warren. Between Warren and between
Davis
Orji,
Warren.
kind of the hybrid running back / wildcat quarterback. Between those guys, they just can't complete passes. And that holds back the offense to an unreal level. Loveland appears to be their only sort of weapon. They don't activate, Donovan Edwards in any sort of way to get him going in the ground game to kind of take pressure off of that. So I think that they're lacking any sort of offensive identity, but that defense is legit. Their front four is legit. They're just entirely held back by the quarterback position. Oregon, on the other hand, still down a few guys, but making all the plays that you need to make. Evan Stewart is blossoming into turning out to be a great player. Gary Bryant Jr. is about to come back next week. He didn't even play. I thought Trayshawn Holden showed up big time after the incident where he, spit on an Ohio State player. He was kind of in the doghouse the week after that. And then this week, I think really, really showed up. That allowed space for Lowe to kind of start to make his presence felt as that fourth receiver now coming in for Trayshawn Holden. So you're just seeing a strong offensive, what do you want to call it? A strong offensive effort from everybody, making it easier on Dylan Gabriel. He had a bad turnover, which I really didn't like. I didn't think he needed to throw the football there. He probably could have just thrown it away. But yeah, man, I love to see the progress of this team. And we'll see how this rest of this year shakes out. Kind of got an easy one with Maryland, and then you got to go to Madison and you got to play the Badgers. That's not going to be an easy game. And then you've got the Dogs at home, and we haven't beat Washington in a number of years. And regardless of how good they are, it scares me. And this Jed Fish team is starting to look a lot like Arizona did last year, where they weren't great to start, but they're starting to put some things together. And last game of the year, it's a rivalry. It's hot. It's contested. I don't know.
I know you're nervous, and Jed Fish does in Oregon after going from one Pac-12 school to another. But I guess no longer Pac-12. But you get what I'm saying.
Yep.
I'm familiar with Oregon. I really think we're going to see Ohio State and Oregon rematch in that Big Ten title.
We will, and Oregon's going to win by 30.
I mean, honestly, I don't see why. Just watching Will Howard week to week. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. You get 2 wins over Ohio State in the same year.
We're gonna get
Will Howard is that unimpressive to me that I'm like, all right, I guess.
We might see Indiana. We might not see Ohio State. Because if Indiana goes undefeated and we go undefeated, Ohio State, they ain't even in there.
See, that's a great matchup I think Oregon Indiana is like a dream come true, right? In that Big Ten title game.
I don't know about dream come true.
But I'd rather play Indiana than Ohio State a second time and neutral grounds.
I don't know. Indiana's putting up points right now. They're putting up points.
I don't know, man. I don't know. By the way, did you get my text? What do you think of that? You don't have to, we can cut this out if you want, but we have a question from Patreon we could answer, but only if you feel like you've got anything to say about it.
If you were to become a commissioner of a never before seen sports league, how would you organize the sport? Please. How would I organize the league?
We could also say that I feel like that takes a lot of thought to answer that question, I feel like.
Yeah.
Shout out to Simon. I think I need to answer that another day, personally. I don't feel like I can just...
Yeah.
I got to really think about that, I think, but it's a good question. I just don't think I can answer that yet.
Like a never before seen sport or sport league?
Let me read the question, and then we don't have to talk about it if we don't want to, but let's give Simon his moment. Salutations, Knack and Zathan.
Love it.
SOS has largely been a football podcast with the occasional dives into other sports. But what if none of these sports existed for you to talk about? This leads me to my inquiry for you two gentlemen. If you were to become commissioner of a never-before-seen sports league, how would you organize the sport? Please feel free to take inspiration from elements of existing sports and creating your brand new sport. That's all for me. See you on the other side, Simon. I've got a thought automatically about this. Actually, is I would do something that is really replicable at home. That like is simple. For example, I love the card game golf. You never heard of 6 card golf?
Oh yeah, I love it.
I could make a whole YouTube channel about 6 card golf and do like matchups and like storylines. And I really could, I think, make a YouTube channel dedicated to golf, like the card game golf and like playing it and the tenseness of it and the fun. Like you really could, I think, do that and make it like
Interesting.
a watchable sport.
Don't tell Liz that. She's whooping my ass in our all-time series. I was dominating to start, and
You
now
guys play?
yeah, she's on a hot streak. We like to play tables and card games every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But she is whooping my ass right now. It's not even. She's probably up like 20 plus games. It's bad.
Dude,
It all started at an airport on the way home from LA. We were in LAX. We're killing some time, and she just went on a hot streak, and I haven't been able to catch up. It's bad.
do you keep track on your phone, like points?
Just
Like
mental vibes. Just mental vibes. I know I'm down bad.
Me and Molly, we take cards with us everywhere. Like if you're waiting for dinner, right? We'll play cards for a little bit at a bar or whatever.
Keep them in the purse, keep them in the car, keep them wherever.
Yeah. I
Man.
really think there's a YouTube channel possible there. Like I don't know if that exists, but I feel like you could make an interesting enough, an entertaining, if you do it right, little sports league similar to like AWA wiffle ball or something. But it'd be so much easier to produce because it doesn't require very much.
Yeah.
To do like golf, like that 6 card golf.
Interesting. Simon, I'm going to put a lot of thought into this. I'm going to come back with a great answer for you next week.
But I guess last thing I'll say on this, I just think doing something that people can replicate at home, like easily, or like some of these sports are so complicated and complex. Oh, the gear and the logistics and the rules that like they're not accessible to normal people. If you make a sport that like is simple enough, people can just play in their backyard or at the table or whatever, like that's going to have a lot longer legs. I don't know. Anyway, can we end this show by talking about next week?
Yeah, let's talk about next week.
There are 1, 2, 3, 9 games. I think that should be on our radar for next week. I'll run them by you. We can talk about them. And then if there's any we want to cut, we can absolutely do that. In the college football world, that's college football week 11. Both games are at 12:30 West Coast time, 3:30 East Coast time. Number 2, Georgia at number 16, Ole Miss is really, really interesting. I think there's a shot Ole Miss wins. I think Georgia's kind of vulnerable with their quarterback. They seem to rise to the occasion. They're well coached, but I don't know. That's a good game that feels like it could go either way. What say you?
Yeah, it just depends on what shows up offensively for Georgia and if that defense can withstand whatever little storm or lull that happens from the offense. Can the defense step up, make enough plays to keep the game, to keep them in it? And then for Ole Miss, what version of their offense are we going to see? We've seen Jackson Dart play amazing. We've seen Jackson Dart play less than amazing throughout this year on top of the defense kind of following suit in that same fashion. So what sort of consistency can they come with this week? It should be a good game.
At the same time as that game, I'll probably watch it simultaneously, but my volume will definitely be on the Georgia Ole Miss game. You got Michigan at 9-0 Indiana. I don't see a world where Michigan can beat Indiana. They're just so limited at quarterback. I really have got no confidence in Michigan as a program right now on the offensive side of the football. I think Indiana wins mightily, similar to what Oregon just did to them. I just, given the quarterback situation at Michigan, I just can't imagine Indiana being able to win. I'll have it on. I haven't watched enough Indiana to feel confident talking about them. So it's kind of a good opportunity to peek into them and watch them via multicast. But I really think this game's a blowout. What say you?
Yeah, I'm just very, very curious. Again, like you said, I've watched zero Indiana tape. I'm just looking here at their schedule and who they've beat. Not any world beaters out here. You know, Nebraska you can consider a decent win.
But what does Michigan do well that makes them? I don't think Michigan's a team you're afraid of.
Their defensive front makes it very, very difficult. And again, granted, University of Oregon, their offense is just, it's one of the best in the country, right? So it's a totally different story. I don't know enough about Indiana to know the strength or weakness of their team to be able to call how Michigan's defense is going to influence the football game. And like you said, if you don't have a complementary quarterback play, then it doesn't matter what your defense does or how great your defense is, because you're going to ultimately put them in some sort of short field situation or give up a pick six, right? So we'll see.
Well, the big one for Indiana. They play Michigan this week, and then next week they play at Ohio State. So
Mm,
I mean, man, if they struggle with Michigan, it's hard to be confident they're going to beat. If they beat Michigan comfortably, they got a lot of momentum going into Ohio State week. But if they struggle or falter a little bit against Michigan, it's going to be hard to be confident they can
yeah.
actually challenge a team like Ohio State.
Yeah, they've got a quarterback, 73% completion percentage. Um, let's see, running back averaging 6 yards a carry, backup running back averaging 4.8 yards a carry. So it seems like they're a balanced offense here. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe I have to turn on the tape this week for Indiana.
Um, Last is a night game, 4:30 West Coast time, 7:30 East Coast time. I love this is a venue, probably the number one place I want to go watch a game before I die in college football. Number 11 Alabama at number 14 LSU
Ooh.
in the Bayou at night at LSU. It's incredible. I mean, this is a game. This is probably the college football game of the week. I know that Georgia Ole Miss is interesting, but I love night games at LSU. I love both these programs. I don't know what's going to happen. I lean LSU actually winning just to the struggles we've seen from Alabama and the inconsistency from Jalen Milroe. But man, I think it's a great game, LSU and Alabama this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. I'm not sure any of those defenses are going to show up. So this could be a high scoring game. It could not be. We'll find out.
How about NFL Week 10? On Thursday Night Football, we've got the Bengals at the Ravens. First of all, I love watching games on Amazon Prime. I just think the clarity is actually like amazing. I know it's a weird thing to say, but it's like a good viewing experience. I think the Ravens win big, but I don't know. It's interesting. I'm curious if the Bengals can challenge the Ravens or not.
Yeah, it's a division game. Anytime it's a division game, the Bengals have probably seen Lamar more than anybody in the past couple of years. Um, you never know. And it's Thursday. It's a short week. Ravens kind of got to coast towards the end of the game. Bengals, same deal. They're hot offensively. Neither team's great defensively, so we could see another high scoring game here. But yeah, I'm not going to count out the Bengals.
I'm really interested. The Patriots play Chicago. How does Caleb Williams respond to, I think, two kind of rough performances in a row?
Yeah,
It's also, I think it's going to be, I don't know. Is Drake May healthy? I think Drake May is healthy. I watched him play this
Jake May's
past
healthy.
weekend. So Drake May, the number 3 overall pick against Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick. It's a fun matchup. And I'm really interested to see what happens in this game.
I am too, and I'm interested to see if Eberflus is fired after a loss. I'm
Oh,
not saying that they're going to lose, but to me, if they don't win this game, or honestly, if they don't win this game in a convincing fashion, yikes.
his days are numbered, especially, DJ Moore had an opportunity to throw him a bone and he didn't.
Did
And that
not
felt
throw him a
very
bone.
intentional. And that's a guy the organization loves, that paid a lot of money to early, in fact.
Yeah,
Like DJ Moore not supporting you speaks volumes about your lack of support in the locker room.
right. And DJ Moore was kind of a guy who kind of knew, like, we saw a better version of Justin Fields this year. Again, maybe Justin Fields wasn't totally the problem, but DJ Moore is pretty vocal about the fact that, like, hey, it's the problems aren't what you guys think they are right now. Basically, he's saying we've got the talent, we've got the people in the building, the staff's just not right.
Yeah. I think Caleb, even, Caleb Williams' play actually shows that he's close.
Yeah,
He's just not getting what he needs. Here's one we might be able to scratch. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a game time decision, quite literally. Denver at Kansas City is interesting. I'm curious how
scratch.
Bo Nix plays Kansas City. I look. I think we're on like kind of a watch list for Kansas City. How long can their undefeated streak go? They're winning these marginal games. At some point, they're going to slip up. And maybe it's a team in their division. Sean Payton knows them pretty well. He's played them before. I don't know. I've got my eyes on Kansas City waiting. When is the moment they slip up? Is it going to happen at all? It's probably not against,
Hmm.
Denver. We saw what happened when Denver played Baltimore this past weekend, but I don't know, man. It's fascinating to me how Denver plays Kansas City this weekend.
Yeah, it might be fascinating, but to me, the Chiefs, this game will be at home again. This is the game where they remember that they're the Kansas City Chiefs and have some offensive firepower. They displayed that tonight, and I think that it's going to trend up. Again, another
Yeah.
week of DeAndre Hopkins being in the system. How much more is going to be opened up offensively here? So again, I think that they start going on a tear versus, barely holding on to a few games.
Does maybe some injuries from Patrick Mahomes we saw tonight, like an ankle injury, anything like that, does that play a role, you think?
He won a Super Bowl on a high ankle sprain. I'm not worried about, dude.
Here's a great game, dude. I think this might be my NFL game of the weekend. It's the
Can
one I'm
I
probably
can I
most excited for.
can I guess the game?
Yeah.
Titans Chargers. I'm
Get
kidding.
the yeah. Do you have a real
No,
guess?
it's the Steelers Commanders.
Yeah, dude. Get to watch my team. I'm not sure what's going to happen. Russell Wilson's a big question mark. How does he play? They got a good defense in Washington. Jaden Daniels is every time I watch him, like really fun to watch. He's crushing it. He's just like electric and
Yeah.
decisive. And he had a play against like in Chicago I saw last week where they like have him dead to rights. They go to sack him and he just like jumps out of it somehow. You're like, how did you know? How did you feel that? I don't even know how that
Yeah.
was possible. I love Jaden Daniels. I think it's a great game. It's a great matchup. It's two good defenses. A lot of questions to answer about both. The storylines are fun. I don't know who's going to win. What say you? Do you think you have a thing you have in mind? A team you think is a favorite here?
Yeah, this is one of the games I have scheduled for the not scheduled, have, earmarked for the Commanders. You're going to play an elite defense. What is your offense going to look like and put together? Because against the Chicago Bears, again, outside of that Hail Mary, it didn't look great. And the Chicago Bears have had a good defense under Eberflus.
Yeah.
Now, again, you're going against another strong defense coached by Mike Tomlin. How are you going to respond to probably the most adversity you're going to see? You've got TJ Watt coming at you all night. You got Cam Hayward kind of pushing the pocket up into you. They've got a great back end with Minka Fitzpatrick as a ball hawk. Like, things are going to be tougher. So how do they respond?
How about the Sunday night football? You've got a kind of a prove it game. The Lions at Houston. Now, I think Houston's kind of dead to rights without their top two receivers. Feels like an easy one for Detroit, actually, the way things worked out. I watched Houston this past week without their top two guys, and these were not the same team.
It looked
Do you
hard.
kind of agree with that?
Yeah, it looked hard. And I was going to go into my sophomore slump take for CJ Stroud. Had to pull that back a little bit and just remember they're missing Nico Collins. They're missing Stephon Diggs. Mixon is, yes, he's back and he's healthier, but he's still not 100%. So this kind of sets up for the Lions to, go into Houston and kind of whoop some ass.
Yeah. Also, man, like your best receiver, Tank Dell's awesome. He's really a supplemental receiver. He can't be your number one guy.
No.
And it's tough, man. That Jets game we saw, Jets in Houston. Houston's just not their best right now. And until they get Nico Collins back, they're really, in my opinion, just completely off the board as a Super Bowl contender and even maybe a playoff contender.
Yeah, and that's the truth, right? Stephon Diggs out for the year, so who is he throwing the ball to? I would have liked to have seen them incorporate Dalton Schultz into that offense more. Again, like, he was a weapon for them last year. I'd like to see Slowick kind of scheme him back into the game after having obviously transitioned a lot of your focus to Nico, Diggs, and Tank. Let's get Dalton Schultz back in there.
I think with Nico Collins back, they're okay because that's what they were last year. Stephon Diggs was kind of an added bonus that was awesome, but
right,
you can get away without him. But you need a number one receiver, and without Nico Collins, until he's back, it's just hard to believe in this team.
Agreed.
And then finally on Monday Night Football, I think actually a really interesting game. It's Tua and Miami on the road at the Rams.
Yeah,
both need a victory badly. I think it's a must win for both. I think the Dolphins are out, but they're kind of playing for pride and playing to keep Mike McDaniel's job. The Rams are looking good. Last time I saw them, they played really well. Stafford had 4 touchdowns. What do you make of this game on Monday night?
I'd hope to see a high-scoring game here. Again, this Rams offense with Puka Nacua, with Cooper Kupp, has looked totally different. Even though there was a bogus ejection of Puka Nacua, he didn't throw a punch. He was the follow through on the push missed, and they called it a punch. So bogus. But Matt Stafford's playing good football right now. They're starting to get dialed in as a team. Their defense is starting to play a lot stronger as well. This young defense that they've had is starting to, you get a few games under your belt, some confidence, understanding how to prepare going into the weeks. Like, things are just going to continue to get better for them defensively. They're never going to be, a superstar defense, but if you can get inside the top 15 defensively, I think we'll feel pretty good about them. On the flip side with the Dolphins, please, for all that is good, like, you have to take advantage of this Rams back end. You have to push the ball down the field, and you have to get Tyreek and Waddle going. That's when this offense is fun, is when the two cheetahs are rolling.
Who's the guy who got ejected from Detroit?
Brian Branch.
So I grew up watching Austin Collie and Peyton Manning got Austin Collie just killed a couple times, thrown over the middle.
Mm-hmm.
making throws that were, you would call them irresponsible. They're called hospital
Hospital
balls,
balls, yeah.
where you're like, man, hey, you can't throw that because you're going to get your guy killed. I thought one of those was thrown by Jordan Love. Brian Branch.
He throws Jordan Love throws a lot of those footballs, by the way.
Yeah.
He throws a lot of them.
Yeah. He puts his guys in harm's way a lot. I don't like that we're punishing defenders for bad throws and
Yes.
bad quarterback play.
Agreed.
What do you make of that take? Is that a weird angle? Is that, I don't know if
No.
other people are saying that, but it's frustrating to watch. When I grew up playing quarterback, they would tell you got to throw it, like Tom Brady would say all the time. You got to throw the ball low and away over the middle, protect your receivers from defenders.
Yeah.
And we're watching Jordan Love just willy-nilly put guys in harm's way all the time, and then getting rewarded for it with 15-yard penalties, and then even getting guys ejected from the game. Like New York makes this call. And I get it. New York wants people to be safe and out of harm's way. Like New York's kind of in a bind where like you can't have guys get hit like that. It's bad look for moms who are letting their young children play football. I understand all that, the optics of it, but
right.
My whole life, and maybe I just got to adapt, that's a bad throw by a quarterback, not a penalty on the defense. What do you make of that take? Is that crazy?
Yeah, I don't think it's a crazy take, and I think it's the right way to think about it. Imagine you're an NFL wide receiver, you're going up, quarterback throws one high, and you got to go up to get it. As a defender, where do you have to go to try and break that pass up? You also have to go up. So your timing, you're selling out to break up the pass as the receivers may be coming down. Like it's hard not to. And then we've seen a number of times where a defender kind of maybe holds up on that contact. Receiver comes down, catches it, and runs right past him because the defender can't actually dislodge the football. I don't know what you're supposed to do as a defender if you are ranging your space perfectly. The ball comes into it and you can't defend your area. Again, there's very clear hits where, guys were taking guys out, truly spearing hard, helmet to helmet. But if you're dislodging the football, and I think if your hands or your body makes any kind of contact with the football while dislodging it, I think that should instantly negate a penalty. Obviously, outside of any sort of vicious intent, but if you are clearly making a play on the football and you're going through somebody's chest, but your helmet still hits their helmet, like that's just football. We could call targeting every play on a running back who's lowering their head and shoulder, on a safety who's diving down to take out legs. Like I think you're right. You can't continue to reward offenses for putting the ball in a bad situation.
You played defense. I remember playing against you in high school, for example.
Yes.
And so you got a perspective I wouldn't have because I never really played defense. I look at playing defense in the NFL as wildly impossible. Like I would not. So often, like corners, especially in the NFL, are put in a bind where it's like you're just screwed by the rules.
Yeah.
Is that kind of your understanding of the NFL right now? It's just like, man, we're not allowing defenders an opportunity to succeed here because of the way we're creating rules.
Yeah, they're calling that defensive holding, even though it's like within 5 yards. You can't use a slingshot technique anymore, where they get outside you or they get inside you. You grab the waist, slingshot your way back inside. If you're hand fighting in trail technique and your feet get tangled up or your hands get tangled up, that's a flag on you. Like there's just no easy or clean way to play corner, and that's supposed to be a physical position. I think that refs tend to swallow the whistle as you get into the playoffs, and there's a little bit more physicality let go. But yeah, it's tough. You can't push here, you can't grab there, but the offense can hold you right into their chest and then separate right when the ball gets there and catch the back shoulder. But if you have your hands on them in any way, shape, or form, or you don't look back in time, then it's, spot of the foul, ball moves forward. Hate to see it.
Man,
it rewards bad quarterback play.
Yeah. That's not the spirit of the rule. I know the outcome's tougher than, I know they want to have players safe to protect people and you have to. I understand all the optics of all that, but
yeah, I
just hate the we're rewarding bad quarterback play. It's it's tough. It's tough. I don't know what the right answer is, but it's certainly worth pointing that out. That's all I got today, man. I want to say before we go, I went back to Kiggins Bowl where you and I, we played each other senior years there.
Mm-hmm.
We went and saw my high school coach, his final regular season game. He's walking into retirement. It was so nostalgic. It brought me back to the times you and I, grown up together. And I it was like a reunion. I don't know if you keep in touch great with all the guys you played with. For me, like it was my first time back there and like seeing everyone. And
Yeah.
it was like, man, I'm probably not going to go to like my 10-year reunion. I moved on from high school. I'm out of it, and I don't really ever plan to go back. But it was nice to see everyone again and like kind of the people I wanted to, pick my moments. Do you keep in touch with the guys you played high school football with?
Oh yeah, I keep in touch with them. A
Mm.
lot of them will be in my wedding party coming up next year.
Oh,
But yeah, there's just something special about Friday nights, and I haven't been back for quite some time. We changed coaches since I had left. But man, just the feeling of like it seems like the whole city or the town is there to watch you, even though they're not, right? Like there's people doing a million other things, but it just you get the people out in the stadium, the people around the track. It's some of the greatest moments I've had in my life, and moments I hold dear. So certainly great to talk about with the fellas. Yeah, maybe I should get back there and see a game.
River Skyview is a big deal though. That was like usually the
That was
biggest
a
game in
big deal.
Southwest Washington.
That was always a big deal.
And I gotta say, you have the unique perspective. You grew up with all the guys you played high school football with. I transferred in, like I was kind of a little more. I hate the word transactional relationship, but like it was. I mean, it was just people I didn't like. In fact, I hung out with you actually often after games more than my own team, which is crazy, but it's honest. I really
Yeah.
did. And man, that's all I got. Anything you want to say? Anything we kind of want to leave anything on the table here, but that's all I got for today.
No, yeah, nothing other than love you guys. Thank you guys for watching the show. Again, always a big thank you to you, for opening up your platform to me, come here and talk ball for a little bit. So thank you to you. Everybody, this week's going to be crazy. Reminder to, meet people where they're at, be kind, be respectful, and that's what's going to win. Love will win.
Man, are you ready? This could be
Not
the
Jordan
last
Love,
show
to be
we
clear.
ever do.
Love in
Yeah.
general.
This could be, hey man, you never know what happens. Maybe this is the last episode of Strong Opinion Sports we ever see.
No, we've got many, many more to come.
I live in
can't wait.
downtown Portland. I could get killed, Nathan. You never know.
Okay, take it. Don't speak that into existence.
I'm not excited about that idea. Sweet relief. It's terrible.
Yeah, this got really dark.
It did. It
Anyways.
did. Well, guys, I love you. On that note, I appreciate you. Hope you have a great day. And take care.
Boom, bow, boom.
Get it right. It's ba-dum, bum, bam. We're done.
We're done.